Leader Len McCluskey has said if the opinion polls are still dire in 2019, that Jeremy Corbyn will have to stand down as leader. Do you think he's right? Or do you think Corbyn can lead the party to victory in 2020?
Leading Britain's conversation, Nigel Farage. This evening from 10 on LBC.
I'm Clive Bull, this is LBC and the Consumer Hour. Dean Dunham is here, consumer lawyer and the retail ombudsman, answering your questions. Just going back for a moment to Maggie in Manchester. I said I thought there was a way of doing it over the phone to get a price comparison for your energy. And there is. In fact, there's probably several, but certainly USwitch, which is one of the leading comparison sites. They do have a free phone number, and we're going to phone Maggie and give it to her right now so that hopefully she can get something sorted out, and it gives her another possibility, another choice if you're not on the internet. So Maggie, if you're listening, we're about to call you and give you that information. Back to the calls. Lynn in Dartford. Hello, Lynn.
In Dartford, I'm in Belvedere.
Oh, very nice too, yes.
Not even close.
What can we do for you, Lynn?
Right, what it is, I bought my dog a toy from a well-known pet store. It said it was supplied with a battery. When I unwrapped it, there was no battery. Gave it to him on Christmas Day. It's been working, but it's broke. Well, in less than like a week, 2 weeks. I was wondering what I can do about it, because the company's saying there's no proof that there's no batteries with it or anything.
Lynn, I'm slightly confused. When you say it's working, is that because you put a battery in it?
Yeah, I supplied my own battery.
Now I understand. Well, if the box or the packaging says that it comes with batteries included, if that's what it says, then they're going to have to give you the batteries. It's simple as that.
At the moment, I bought it online, and they're saying, "Oh, well, you've got no proof." So online.
Oh, you can't prove that it didn't have a battery? Is that what they're saying?
They're saying I can't prove that it didn't come with a battery.
Oh, I see. I had it wrong.
I bought it online.
I see. So you're saying that basically they accept the batteries are included, but they didn't come with the batteries.
Yes, we didn't have no batteries.
Well, they'll have to prove that, because within the first 6 months, it's for them to prove, not you. So you can go back and say, actually, it didn't have the battery. If you think it did, prove it.
Right.
Stand your ground, Lynn, and tell them Consumer Rights Act, you know your rights.
All right. Good luck, Lynn. Thank you, Mark in Hackney. Hello, Mark.
Hello.
Hello. Go ahead.
Yeah, basically a quick question. I've ordered a ticket to fly a couple of months ago. Actually coming up, and next week is the flight. Just 2 weeks ago, maybe, the airline has informed me that they've pushed the flight with about 2.5 hours later, which is a bit not so comfortable. Is there any compensation I can claim for that?
Well, sorry, when is the flight? Tell me again.
Next week.
And when did they tell you? Was it more than 14 days ago?
Yeah, more than 14 days ago. But quite a while after I've booked it.
Yeah, let me stop you there. They have the right to do that. So if they tell you within 14 days or more than 14 days from the date of the flight, then you can't get compensation.
Right. I understand that. And if they would have just changed it in the 14 days, there is a compensation?
Yes.
Right. Does there have to be a certain amount of hours they are, let's say, pushing it later, or...
No, you're creeping into a different type of question, because you're getting more into flight delay question. This is more about if they change your flight and they tell you in a certain period of time, they don't have to pay you compensation. If they tell you on the day, for example, or a few days before, then they do, but not in your case.
Okay,
Sorry,
Mark. Thank you very much. Caroline in Sutton. Hello, Caroline.
Hi.
Hi, go ahead.
Yes, in October I took out a month's membership with a gym because I just wanted to try it out. And it was on the understanding that I would be able to book classes online. When I came to try and do this, within 48 hours it was apparent I couldn't, and I was told I had to book on the day. I immediately asked for my money back, because if you book on the day you can't get onto the classes. They wouldn't give me my money back. They issued me 30-day free passes, and I have to book on the day, can't get on the classes. I've asked them if they would offset this £55 against a year's membership, and they've said no. But I'm very angry about it.
So basically, they're being really helpful.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a month where thousands of people are going to enter into a gym contract, and by February they're going to regret it. But this is not quite the case with you. I would go back and say I only entered into the contract on the basis that I could book online. Now, Caroline, if you can prove that you were told that or led to believe that, you have a very good case to say, I want to rip the contract up, give my money back. But you'll have to be able to show something on the website or in literature or something where it says that.
Well, funnily enough, a girlfriend of mine joined a week before to do that month's membership, and she was able to book online, and they changed the rules within that 2-week period. And when I came to do it, I wasn't able to do it.
Can't they let you do it now?
No. I have never been.
How peculiar.
It's the most awkward situation. I've phoned up so many times. I've been referred to head office. I would like to actually join the gym, but £55 is a lot of money to swallow, and I feel they should offset it against my year's membership.
I'd go back and keep on screaming at them. Those who shout the loudest usually get what they want. It's not like you're trying on. I can see why you're saying what you're saying. Go back to their central customer services if they're not a one-off gym and explain it again to them. I'm sure they'll do something for you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Adam in Crawley. Hello, Adam.
Yeah, hi. Good evening, Clive.
Evening.
Good evening. Yeah, I bought a ticket back in September. I booked it online for my wife and the kids. They were flying out to Spain on October.
Yeah.
So a day before they fly in, my missus wanted to print the ticket, and she couldn't, and she kept facing the same problem. So we decided to call them, and we've been told that the tickets were cancelled because of an error when we made the payment. So I went to my bank and see that the money was taken same day when we booked the ticket, and they never came back. So I called them again, explained the situation, and they say you can pop into one of our customers' service, and they say if you want to fly, you have to buy a new ticket. So when we bought the ticket, they were like £380, and we ended up paying almost £800. And they say you can make a complaint, and we will come back to you. So I received an email back from them. They say we believe an error was occurred at the time, which never was the case. And I'm stuck with that situation. I mean, last reply from them was the same thing.
Well, Adam, that sounds very unfair to me. I would go back to the airline and say, which alternative dispute resolution provider are you with? Most are with one now. And what you can do for free, if it's the retail ombudsman, that is, you can refer your complaint to them, explain exactly what you've just explained to me now, and see what they say. It appears to me, I think you're entitled to something.
Okay, so it's the ADR you've got to ask about.
The ADR.
All right, Adam, thank you very much. Let's squeeze in Ali in Twickenham. Hello, Ali.
Hello, actually it's in Cricklewood. Yes, good evening to you. Yes, the problem is, I mean, I was in a gym, a member of a gym, and I was paying £55. Then they raised it to £70. And when I entered for the agreement, they said that when you give us, I said, if you want to leave, what's the procedure? They said that after 1 year, or you just give us 1 month notice and you can leave. I said, that's fine. So 1 month I give them notice and I left the contract. I said, can I cancel my membership? The direct debit says, no, you are canceled from our side. So I left it like that, and after I left it, I thought that they have cancelled it.
And they're still charging you, are they?
The devil is still charged for another 10 months.
10 months?
Wow.
Yeah, for 10 months. I didn't see until,
You didn't see?
I didn't see.
Oh dear.
They're taking that money. Then I found out, because I don't want to name...
No, you can't. What can Ali do about this?
Well, look, there's 2 things I want to say first for other listeners. When you stop a contract where there's a direct debit, always cancel it yourself. Never leave the other party to do it. Secondly, always check to make sure it has been cancelled and no more payments have come out. Ali, go back to your bank, Tell them you did not authorize those direct debit payments. Therefore, you want the money back from your bank. They may assist, but put in writing to the gym and tell them that there's no contract. They shouldn't have taken your money. You demand they repay it in 7 days. They will repay you.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's squeeze in Sarge. Only got a minute or so, Sarge. What's your question?
Hi, evening both. Very quick one. Last November, my wife bought 2 branded handbags from online, and when they arrived, they didn't look genuine, so she called them up and they arranged a return. It's been 4 or 5 weeks now when she returned, and she have only received partial refund for 1 bag. When we reached back to company and they said they have only received 1, they haven't received 2. And they're still investigating. It's been 3 weeks since the investigation has gone up.
Sarge, very quickly, how did you send that bag back? Was it through their prepaid postage, or did you post it?
It's through their prepaid postage.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. So basically, it will be for them to contact the courier service, not you, because it's their contract, to find out what happened with it, and they'll have to deal with it. So go back to them and say, it's your problem, your prepaid postage, please deal with it.
Okay, good luck, Sarge. This is clearly a common problem, this issue of whether something's got back or not, whether it's been returned or not.
It really is. And Clive, let me say this as the closing shot for tonight. If you send things, it's so important you've got evidence you've done it, whether it's a photograph or getting the Royal Mail to sign something. Evidence is so important because things go missing all the time.
Absolutely. Dean, thank you very much. We'll see you next week, same time. Dean Dunham from the Retail Ombudsman. Now, don't forget, you can listen to LBC whenever you like and wherever you are by downloading the LBC app for your mobile or tablet. Coming up at 1, it's Darren Adam. Next here on LBC, Nigel Farage.
The advice offered in this hour is for guidance only. You should always seek your own independent legal opinion.
Coming up later, Britain's 5 biggest business groups, having been pessimistic last year, are saying they're committed to making 2017 a year of progress and success. Should we be more optimistic? Are you feeling good about 2017 and what Brexit means? Also, the police chief in Cologne has faced accusations of racial profiling after he stopped North Africans going into the centre of Cologne. This follows the awful sex attacks last year. If you were the Cologne Chief of Police, would you have done the same thing? And the Labour Party, Len McCluskey, their biggest backer, has said if the polls are still awful in 2019, that Corbyn will have to go. Is he right, or is Corbyn the man for the job? I'm Nigel Farage, and it all starts next.
On FM, online, on your mobile, and on digital radio. Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 10 o'clock, a British soldier has died in what the MOD has called an incident in Iraq. A spokesman says it wasn't the result of enemy activity. LBC's Philip Chrysakos reports.
The Ministry of Defence says the soldier was part of the 2nd Battalion Duke of Lancaster's regiment and the family has been told. The spokesman says the death occurred in Taji following what's being called an incident that is currently under investigation. The soldier's family has asked for a period of grace before the name is released.
Police are holding 4 men in connection with a hit and run in Oldham that's killed 2 girls. One died at the scene on New Year's Eve. Her younger cousin has since died in hospital. Officials in Turkey believe they're close to identifying the man who shot dead 39 people at a nightclub on New Year's Eve morning. Authorities say they have fingerprints and a basic description of the suspect who fled the scene in Istanbul. The Islamic State group has claimed responsibility. Serdal Kantines says he called his friend who was trapped inside.
He was so scared, the voice, because he was saying, very bad things happen here. You will see, I have to close. Then he closed the phone. Are you all right? My friend's all right. Then he say, you will see on the TV, you will see, then close.
8 people are being questioned. Scotland Yard has named a man at the centre of a murder investigation in South London. 24-year-old Ernest Kalawa from Southwark was stabbed in Peckham on Friday. A man's been arrested and bailed. At least 60 inmates have died during a prison riot in northern Brazil. Authorities believe the disturbance was caused by two gangs fighting over control of several jails in the area. Plans for 14 new garden villages have been approved by the government. 48,000 homes will be built across England, more in 3 larger garden towns. Kevin Fitzgerald is Honorary Director of the Campaign to Protect Rural England in Hertfordshire. He's told LBC the developments have to be suitable and well placed.
There's a bigger question about why does it all have to happen down here in the southeast when there are parts of the country a couple of hours up the road who would love to see more development, more economic growth, and indeed have got the space, and they've got brownfield sites where old factories have been demolished.
LBC weather, cold with frost or fog tonight, a low of -5. Wet in the far north for Tuesday, brighter in the south and east, a high of 7 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Charles Rowe.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nigel Farage. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC.
Good evening, everybody. Happy New Year. Well, 2016 was a rock and roll ride, wasn't it? What is 2017 going to be like? Well, even though today is still a bank holiday, the Labour Party, Her Majesty's official opposition, clearly have a few problems. The party is now 80% funded by the trade union movement. The biggest one of those is Unite, and Len McCluskey, its leader, says, unless he bucks his ideas up, by 2019, if the opinion polls have not improved ahead of a 2020 general election, that Corbyn will have to go. Is McCluskey right? Has Corbyn done more harm than good? Are you a traditional Labour voter? Do you think Corbyn is the man for the job? Call me. Let me know, please. So you get your chance to have a say on Corbyn. And what a strange story it is, isn't it? Now, he was elected back in 1983, which incidentally is the last time the Labour Party got as low as 23% in the opinion polls. Today's opinion poll, fieldwork conducted just before Christmas, shows them on 24%. They're the lowest they've been for nearly 35 years. And I made mention about the trade union movement. Since Corbyn took over, nearly all of their big private donors have pulled away from the Labour Party. They are now completely reliant on the trade union movement, and Unite is the biggest trade union in the country. Len McCluskey has been a really strong supporter of Corbyn, but today, in an interview in the Daily Mirror, he says if these poll ratings stay bad, and assuming there's not going to be a snap election in 2017, which I have to say, I doubt myself, if we get to 2019 and the situation is still bad, maybe it'll be time for Corbyn to go and for somebody else to take over. I have to say, I think that McCluskey in many ways is right. I guess we should be fair to Corbyn in one way, in that he did build up the Labour Party. When he first became leader, or first announced he was going to run as leader, Labour had 200,000 paid-up members. They've now got 515,000 paid-up members. Corbyn, and okay, many of them are only paying £3 a go, but Corbyn has built up this membership in just the most remarkable way. And most of the people that have joined, they're young, they're energetic, very good foot soldiers to go out and fight elections. And, you know, I think of years gone by and the UKIPers turning up to help me on walking sticks, and wonderful people, but you want lots of young people to put leaflets through doors, to be out there until the polls close at 10 o'clock at night. So they've got all of that. But what sort of people are they? Well, you've heard of Momentum. It's this left-wing, hard left-wing pressure group. And actually, most of the people that have joined the party under Corbyn's leadership are from what we would traditionally call the hard left of politics. And guess what? They're also very metropolitan, very London, very big cities. Since these people have joined, and since the party's moved to the left, Corbyn's faced accusations, of course, of anti-Semitism, that the pro-Palestinian wing of the party is so strong that many of them seem to even regret the fact that Israel exists. Not all of them, but some of them do. Mind you, I know a fair bit about being accused of extremism amongst supporters. But how in touch is Jeremy Corbyn, who, I'll remind you, lives in Islington. How in touch are these 500,000 members with traditional old Labour voters? And remember that from the Midlands all the way up to Hadrian's Wall, we saw Labour seat after Labour seat in the referendum in which Labour voters voted for Brexit. They did so against the advice of their MPs. They did so against the fairly lukewarm support that Mr Corbyn gave to the Remain campaign, and they did so on one really big fundamental issue, and it's immigration. They did not like the way in which their communities had changed. They were struggling to get access to GP services, to get their kids into local schools, and they thought enough was enough, and that the time had come for people to actually take back control of the country and its borders. And yet, my feeling is that Jeremy Corbyn, Diane Abbott, all the people around him basically want to keep the free movement of people. So I think Len McCluskey may be right when he says that Corbyn might have to go, but even he is now being challenged. And there's a guy called Gerard Coyne who is challenging McCluskey for the leadership of the Unite Union. And in some ways, it's like a little reflection of what's going on in the bigger Labour movement. Gerard Coyne has said there can be no compromise on the principle of taking back control of our borders. And we're seeing a few more voices now in the union movement, in the Labour movement, saying the same thing. I'm not sure Corbyn is listening to that. I'm not sure that he engages with that. I'm not sure that he connects with old Labour voters. But more important than what I think is what you think. And I want you please to call me. Tell me what you think. Call us on 0345 6060 973. Text us at 84850. Tweet at us at @LBC. Email us, nigel@lbc.co.uk. And first this evening, we're going to go to Peter in Mitcham to see what he thinks. Good evening, Peter.
Hello, Nigel.
What do you think, Peter?
Well, I was saying to your producer, I think, yes, that I've been a Labour voter since early 60s, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And I feel I have no home to go to now, really, in many ways. I might be, if it's, there will be boundary changes where I live, by the way, so I might not have the same Labour MP that I have. I like her, and she's quite a good MP. I won't mention any names, but if there are boundary changes, I will be, and I might have to move. This block may be pulled down in which I live, so I might be in a Tory area. I might even be forced to vote Tory, which I never thought I'd hear myself say.
What is it, Peter, in particular? Why is it that somebody who has voted Labour for over half a century, what is it? Why are they not connecting with you anymore?
Well, because the new lot that came in, they're not Labour voters as such. They're a mixture of probably communist and far left people that were given the cheap way of becoming a member. A few quid.
It was £3, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
Even on unemployment, pensioner, entry, it was £5. So,
Yeah.
And that's the reason why the party's in so much trouble, really.
So do you think that the Labour Party's been hijacked by the hard left?
Oh, it has, undoubtedly.
And Peter, can I ask you, is Jeremy Corbyn part of that hard left?
Well, I think he is, yes. I mean, when he was an MP, he was always voting against the government. I've forgotten how many hundred times it was.
I think it was 500 times, yeah. And it's actually quite tough, isn't it, to after 34 years as a backbench MP, never being offered any promotion, to vote against your own party 500 times, and then to call for party loyalty. It doesn't really work, does it?
There is something else I'd like to say.
Yeah.
Before, I could talk for ages about this, but no doubt you've got loads of people queuing up. I would like to thank you for it's you and your party, mainly you, that brought the referendum about, because the Tories were really scared. And so I do thank you for that.
Well, thank you.
I don't always agree with what you say, except that you're one of the best speakers I've ever heard, though, I must say that.
Right, well, that's...
You're very impressive.
And did you vote Remain, Peter?
No, I certainly didn't. No.
Okay, good.
No, and that's one of the reasons that, I could still vote Labour if my present MP is in, because she is a good MP.
Okay, so you could vote for her.
I won't mention any names, but I know through the grapevine that she is, like a lot of people, my local councillor, they put their heads in their hands. Over the situation.
No, Peter, listen, thank you very much. And Peter's point from Mitcham was that the party has been hijacked by the hard left, leaving him, a man who's voted for them for over 50 years, feeling they just don't represent him at all. Next we go to Lizzie in Bromley. Lizzie, good evening.
Hi there, Nigel.
Hi. So what do you make of it all?
Well, all I know is that I'm the child of immigrant parents from Ireland that came here in the 50s, and a father who would always have voted Labour. But I can honestly say to you, regarding the Brexit thing, he would be supporting your party. And it's not a party political broadcast, I can really say that. But he would be thinking, yes, we need to get out of this. And,
and we did, didn't we? We did. We voted to leave the European Union, but the Labour Party, don't appear to be reconciled to that somehow, do they?
No, but my dad was a forward-thinking person, and I can honestly say back in the 50s and 60s when girls weren't really promoted to do this, that and the other, he was promoting us, and he would be backing you, and I just know it 100%. I just wanted to phone and say that we need to protect what we've already got and just support it and move forward.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying actually is a sort of patriotic statement, isn't it? That it's about our country and making our own laws and putting our own people first. I mean, Lizzie, tell me, when you look at Jeremy Corbyn, I mean, do you think of him as hard left? Do you think he believes in the country? I mean, are you inspired to go out and vote for him?
No. Yet my dad was a Labour supporter because that's what he inherited. That's what he came over here for. But he acclimatised to England and worked, and he employed all sorts of people. He gave English people jobs, even though he was from he wasn't from England. And to be honest, I just think if he was here, he would actually be out canvassing for you.
Right, well, Lizzie, I tell you, there's quite a few old Labour people that have switched to UKIP over the course of the last couple of years, and it's probably worth mentioning that the new leader of UKIP, gosh, I feel really good saying that now that I'm in retirement, or semi-retirement, but the new leader of UKIP, Paul Nuttall, comes from Liverpool, northern accent, from the Labour heartlands himself, and what Paul has said, Lizzie, is he wants to challenge Corbyn's Labour Party, and he thinks that UKIP can actually take over in the north. Let's see. But Lizzie, thank you very much indeed for your call. So we're talking about Len McCluskey saying that if the polls aren't better, Corbyn will have to go in 2019 ahead of the general election. I've had callers telling me they're sceptical about Jeremy Corbyn. If you're a Jeremy Corbyn supporter, please ring me. If you're one of those 300,000 new members who've joined the party, ring me. Tell me why Corbyn is the man to storm to victory in 2020. I'm Nigel Farage, here on LBC, and the time is 10:15.
LBC.
The sound of the sea. There's only one place you'll hear bar staff offering over 50 varieties of vodka martini, because when it comes to exemplary service, only Celebrity Cruises has raised the bar this high. There's no extra mile we won't go, from reserving a heated lounger in our eucalyptus steam rooms to Eggs Benedict at 3 in the morning. If this sounds like heaven to you, then wait, there's more in a moment. Keep listening.
Vodafone's biggest ever winter sale is now on. Treat yourself to great savings on big brands with 6 months half price on selected pay monthly bundles, plus up to 50% off pay-as-you-go phones and home broadband connection fees. Discover in store or search Vodafone Winter Sale. Vodafone, power to you.
Minimum term agreements and credit check may apply. Sale ends 31st of the 1st 17 while stocks last. Broadband subject to availability, acceptance and delivery charges.
New year. Exciting, isn't it? New beginnings, fresh starts, daily commutes. Yep, you heard right. At the Vauxhall Bonus Tag event from the 27th of December to the 16th of January, there's up to 22% off selected models across the range, with many including features such as touchscreen display. So roll on the New Year commute. Visit your local Vauxhall retailer or search Vauxhall Bonus Tag event. Participating retailers only, selected stock only, limited period. Registrations by the 31st of January 2017. Offer not available with any other offers. Full T's and C's apply.
There are some office essentials you just can't live without. Get them all at Staples. Right now there's 50% off the second ink cartridge when you buy 2 of the same. Buy 1 ink cartridge and get the second half price. Stock up and save on your ink cartridges today. Staples. Make more happen.
Irresistible things come to those who wait. Book a celebrity cruise before the end of February and you'll receive a free drinks package and up to £500 off selected sailings and staterooms. Why? Because right now the world is open and the sale is on. Visit celebritycruises.co.uk or contact your travel agent. Cruise Critic awarded, APTA and ATOL protected.
I'm Nick Ferrari. Thank you for listening to LBC in 2016. Prime Minister, why don't you just get up a little earlier? Why don't the businessmen and women just get up half an hour earlier and come up by train anyway, rather than spend all those billions of pounds?
Well, I can assure you, Nick, that I did get up
No, I know
this
you
morning
did,
in order to come and do your programme.
And I'm very grateful. I'll be back leading Britain's conversation at breakfast tomorrow from 7 a.m. on LBC.
So the Labour Party are languishing. They're at 24% in the polls, the worst for nearly 35 years, and their biggest backers, Unite, are questioning whether he should stay on as leader until 2020 for the time of the next election. And there's a battle within Unite going on about immigration with a man called Gerard Coyne, who's challenging the all-powerful, it seems, Len McCluskey, and he's saying we've got to get back control of our borders. Now, I think the absolute fault line between the Islingtonian, Metropolitan, Corbynite Labour Party and Old Labour, I think open borders and immigration is absolutely the issue. And isn't it interesting that Corbyn himself has said he does not think that too many people have come. Diane Abbott, who speaks for the party on these issues, says it would be foolish to set targets. And a spokesman for the Labour leader, who I assume to be Seamus Milne, says he is not concerned with numbers. And I think a huge number of Labour voters are very concerned about numbers. And I suspect that unless Jeremy Corbyn does a U-turn on this issue, I suspect they're in real trouble because the Metropolitan Party is disconnected from Old Labour. That's what I think. What does Dan in Epsom, Surrey, think? Dan, good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm very well. What do you make of Mr. Corbyn then, Dan?
Well, the thing is, it's quite obvious that Mr. Corbyn is stuck in a bubble. He's only supported by, really hardcore lefties from 20, 30 years ago, and idealistic, naive teenagers in the sixth form from today. I just think if you're everybody else, he's kind of looking at it and going, "Look, the real world is here. You're missing the point." I voted UKIP, and I suppose years ago I would have been a Tory supporter, but what really made me laugh is if the left looked at Clacton in the last election, they said, why are so many people in Clacton voting UKIP? I can't believe it. It's the least amount of immigration in the town. Because they were the people that saw the town, that saw their London change in the 50s, 60s and 70s and then moved out. So this is not a new thing. I looked at the census of 49-50, and basically, almost at that time, nearly everybody was the same colour, everybody had the same culture, everybody spoke the same language, yet less than one man's lifetime, 60 years later, everything's changed. There's hundreds of different communities. Now, I think, I agree with you, Nigel, is that immigration, I think, is a good thing. Is that in low numbers, they can be absorbed into the mass populace. I think everybody would agree that immigration in low numbers, so those people can join us and all row in the same direction in the boat. Nobody would disagree. It's not 1972, the NFR around. Everyone kind of thinks the same. But what we didn't want was millions and millions and millions of people. I mean, the main reason that Corbyn will never be voted in is because most of us saw what his government, or not his government, we saw what New Labour did to us. In their 13-year tenure was absolute treason and disgusting. We saw that when I actually grilled Phil Willis personally on this, and he came clean and said, look, the upper echelons of the Labour Party made me do it. They made me allow, they allowed millions and millions of people from outside the EU. They didn't cap new EU member states. In their own words,
no, that's right.
They wanted to rub the noses of the right in it. That was his exact words.
But the people they affected, Dan, the people they affected actually, in most cases, were traditional Labour voters. It was those earning lower incomes who saw their wages suppressed. It was those struggling to get on the housing ladder that found it harder and harder and harder. It's amazing to me that they don't appear to have learnt the lesson. But Dan, let me ask you one question. Is the Labour Party doomed if Corbyn stays as leader?
Yeah, but I think the Labour Party are doomed if he stays as leader, but I think they're doomed if they get someone else in, because I just think people, even if they take... Let's put this in context. The only time the Labour Party were ever electable was when they were a soft, social, underbelly version of the Tory Party, right? They had a 13-year government which they sold us down the river. They had the Iraq War, mass uncontrolled immigration. They sold gold at record low rates.
Oh, I know, don't.
The economy. So what I'm saying is the only time they've ever been electable in recent history was when they were a soft version of the Tory Party. All that he's really done is Corbyn has gone back to their traditional values, and their traditional values do not chime.
So Dan, where do those Labour votes go to? Do they go to the Tory Party? Do they go to UKIP? Do they stay at home? What's going to happen?
Well, what I'd really like to see is I would like to see. AV. I would like to see, all those votes in the last election, Nigel, I voted for you. And I also sat there and thought, if it wasn't for the spectre of the SNP and Labour getting together, how many votes did we get, Nigel? How many votes did you get?
Well, nearly 4 million, yeah. 4
million.
Yeah.
So I sort of think to myself, Nigel, we probably would have got 6 million, right? Because there was lots of people like me sitting at home thinking, wow, the SNP might join together with Labour. And what do I vote Tory?
Well, actually, Dan, on the UKIP point, UKIP got 4.5 million votes in the 2014 European elections. 40% of those did not vote UKIP in 2015 for fear, as you say, of that lady north of the border, controlling a prime minister who, in the shape of Ed Miliband, didn't look very strong. But actually, in total, between 2014 and 2015, nearly 6 million people did vote UKIP, and I guess that's what pushed the referendum. Dan, thank you very much indeed for your thoughts. Next we go to Valerie in Lambeth. Valerie, good evening.
Oh, hi. I'm happy to speak to you. Usually they won't put me through on LBC. I ran Labour Friends of Israel for many, many years.
Oh, interesting.
And my late husband was the chief whip of the Parliamentary Labour Party, and he must be spinning in his grave when he sees what's happening to the Labour Party now.
Is it, Valerie... There have been accusations that this Labour leadership have turned a blind eye to anti-Semitism. Do you believe that to be true?
I know it not to be true. They're the biggest anti-Semites I've ever met. John Landsman, he's been the worst since I was running Labour Friends of Israel 40 years ago. As soon as he got in, he was insulting Israel in the most disgusting way for the last 35 years. So was Corbyn, and MacDonald is worse than all of them. He went around in his constituency several years ago with 30, 40 Muslim thugs telling every shopkeeper that if ever they sold Israeli goods or Jewish goods, they'd have their businesses destroyed.
Wow. That's a pretty big claim, Valerie. I mean, you're really saying that some of these people have been linked to thuggery on that level?
Yes.
Wow.
I don't know. I don't say it. I know it. John Landsman, I've heard him speaking out against Israel for the last 30 years, insulting Israel in the most disgusting way. Have you heard any of them speaking up for Christians being murdered in the Middle East?
Well, to be fair, no, I haven't. But OK, there may be some people in the Labour Party who, and you're right, there has been a campaign to try and boycott all Israeli goods, and I understand that. But surely, Valerie, that doesn't represent the Labour Party as a whole.
It may not. I hope not. I hope to God it doesn't represent the Labour Party as a whole. But as far as I'm concerned, if John Landsman, Corbyn and MacDonald are in control, I would never vote for them. And I think any Jew that votes for them should be ashamed. And I said that at Limud. John Landsman came to Limud, which is a Jewish cultural movement, and I was there, and I went to confront him at the meeting. And when I said all the same things at the meeting, I got the biggest applause that we had in the room. The people are disgusted at them. They're the worst anti-Semites you could possibly find.
Right, so you want them to go, basically?
I want them to go. I want them to... I've voted Labour all my life, but as long as they are there, I can never do so again. And I'm very bitter about it.
Valerie, it's very, very strong things you said on that phone call, and I thank you very much indeed. Wow, that's really strong stuff. I mean, I have to say, as leader of UKIP, I've had all sorts of accusations that supporters of mine have said and perhaps done some horrible things. But what Valerie said there was incredibly strong, and I would invite or ask anybody who's a Labour Party official, please to ring up and tell me that Valerie's wrong. I'd love to hear from any of you, because some very strong things were just said then. Next we go to Fred in Golders Green. Fred, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. How are you doing?
I'm fine. What have you got for me, Fred?
You see, I'm going to first address the issue of the Labour Party. I think you might dislike Jeremy Corbyn, but I think he's speaking the truth in terms of immigration against your rhetoric that immigrants are the ones causing the shortages in schools, housing, and healthcare. You as a politician have taken a very unique stand, and you've taken the easiest road to power, or would I say supported power, by not saying the truth to the people, saying the truth to the British people that, look, for the past 8 years, they've been Tory cuts. Tories took funding out of the education system to fund free schools instead of allowing council to build schools. So when there are shortages of schools, it isn't migrants that are causing it, Nigel. It's the fact that the government hasn't funded it.
Well, Fred,
the government has had a failed house.
Fred, hang on a second, because you're moving the debate onto immigration directly. Look, the government couldn't build homes, couldn't build schools, because it didn't know how many people were going to come to the country. We couldn't make any plans of any kind at all. And Fred, I would just say this to you. You know, we, from the early 1950s until the turn of the century, had net migration into Britain running at about 30,000 people a year. It is now running at over 1/3 people every year. But the question, Fred, and I know, you may disagree with me fundamentally on this, but I mean, are you a Jeremy Corbyn supporter, Fred? That's what I want to know.
No, I am not a fundamental Jeremy Corbyn supporter, but I understand his argument. Because you have guided the Conservative Party into going on this numbers figure, and he's not going to fall into that trap. And why I would vote for him is because he's the only one standing and saying the truth, which is you cannot say that failed government policy is because of the economic situation we are in now, right? That is the problem. That's why I would vote for him, Nigel, and against you, because he's the only one that stands at the gate against your idea of what Britain should be.
Okay, Fred. No. I mean, look, that's, the completely sincerely held view. I totally understand it. I think that we need to have the immigration debate about the word control. Corbyn doesn't think that, but no, you're with him, you support him, and that's a sincerely held view, Fred, and I thank you very much indeed for the call. I'm Nigel Farage here on LBC. It's 10:30, and here with the news headlines is Charles Rowe.
Soldiers died in central Iraq, but not as a result of enemy activity. The Ministry of Defence says it happened in Taji. An investigation is underway and the family's been told. A second girl has died after a hit and run in Oldham on New Year's Eve as police hold 4 men. 11-year-old Zanita Krakova has died in hospital. Her 12-year-old cousin died at the scene. The net is thought to be closing on the gunman who killed 39 people in Turkey during New Year celebrations. Police in Istanbul are also holding 8 people. LBC weather: cold with frost or fog, a low of -5. Wet in the far north for Tuesday, but brighter in the south and east, a high of 7 degrees.
This is LBC.
The most beautiful things in life are made up of many tiny but individually brilliant details, like the tinkle of piano keys. Sounds nice on its own, but better with a violin alongside. And better still with a whole orchestra. You see, beauty happens when the little things come together. The new Volvo V40R design. Life is in the details.
Sky Broadband Tech Team, how can I help?
It's Lego Batman. I'm having trouble uploading my dope tracks online.
It seems your back computer is disconnected. We'll sort it right away.
Sweet, the track is called Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Tell me you're recording this.
Only for quality and training purposes.
Sounded quality to me too, thank you.
Okay. Can I ask, is the Ethernet cable plugged into the back of your router?
Now that you mention it, no. I blame Alfred. Sweet, my track's uploaded. I'll send you the link.
No, it's fine, really. Just glad we could help.
I already sent it.
The Sky Broadband Tech Team are specially trained to resolve most broadband problems online or on the phone. It's all part of the service. Sky, believe in better.
What if your weekly family shop could take you on your annual family holiday? What if your daily commute could help you go somewhere rather more interesting? What if topping up your car could help you top up your tan? With the British Airways American Express credit card, your purchases will earn you Avios that could really take you places. Search BA Amex to find out more. Representative 22.9% APR variable. Applicants must be 18 or over. Approval subject to status. Conditions and exclusions apply.
Beauty happens when the little things come together. The new Volvo V40R design. Now from just $199 a month, including maintenance with Volvo Car Leasing.
2-year contract hire agreement with an initial rental of £2,388. Offer ends March 31st, subject to status. Mileage and return conditions apply. Maintenance covers routine servicing, tyres, replacement parts and repairs due to fair wear and tear. Visit volvocars.co.uk for more details.
Pop in for a test drive today at your nearest Volvo showroom. The Volvo V40R design. Life is in the details.
This is LBC with Nigel Farage.
Is the Labour Party doomed if Corbyn stays as leader up until a 2020 general election? Well, my sense of it is there is some disillusion spreading within the parliamentary Labour Party. Sadiq Khan, of course, stood down as a Member of Parliament to become Mayor of London. Andy Burnham is going to stand aside. He represents a seat called Lee in Greater Manchester, and he's going to go and try and become the Mayor of Manchester. But I think more interestingly, Jamie Reid, a youngish, moderate Labour MP from a constituency called Copeland up on the Cumbrian coast, has walked out of politics. He's gone to work for the nuclear industry up there, and there'll be a by-election in Copeland, I would guess, at the end of February. And my feeling, and the rumours I'm getting, is there could be many more youngish Labour MPs who decide actually they can earn a lot more money in the private sector, get a lot less aggro from the newspapers, and not stick with a party that frankly doesn't look at the moment, although it's got a cat's chance in hell of winning in 2020. Mind you, this time last year, we said Brexit wouldn't happen. No one thought Leicester City would win the league, and Trump looked to be a complete impossibility. So one never knows. Our next caller is Tony in Woodford. Tony, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. I really feel that Jeremy Corbyn will win the next general election.
Do you?
And you keep banging on, and you cause so much division and trouble with your rhetoric, Nigel. You know, I think you should look at the facts. You know, you bang on about immigration, and you're pandering to people's insecurities and fears, and we're all kind of looking at each other and hating each other. But in reality, it's such a small percentage of immigrants that actually come here and settled if they're not thrown out. So, you know,
thrown
I don't
out?
know why you keep going on and on about it.
Thrown out? Tony, thrown out? Do you know, of those who come to Britain illegally and, make a false claim that gets rejected, even of those who are rejected, fewer than 1 in 4 get returned anywhere.
Yeah, but that's the system, Nigel. You can't blame the immigrant or the asylum seeker or the person who wants to come here, because the majority of them are not coming for benefits. They want a better life. And if there's a shortage of housing, it's successive governments that's never bothered to build it. So perhaps that's the plan, to get everyone hating and fighting each other.
The plan, Tony, is to have a controlled immigration system like we had from World War II until Tony Blair and Peter Mandelson and co. got into gear. That's the idea, a sensible, balanced immigration system so we all know where we stand. And that way you get far less division within society because you've got a chance of having deeper integration.
That's not true. The division comes
when people are discriminated against, there's not enough housing, there's not enough jobs, there's 0-hour contracts, low pay. That causes division.
Oh, well, hang on, Tony. Tony, hang on a second, mate. One of the reasons why real-term income in the last 10 years had gone down the way that it had is because of a massive oversupply in the labour market caused by open-door immigration. I mean, that's why so many, and you know, you're a Corbyn supporter, a Labour supporter, but that's why so many Labour supporters did actually vote for Brexit in the referendum, because they could see a direct cause and effect. And also, Tony, just come back to you with one more quick point. Do you know, we have to build a new house, a new dwelling in this country every 4 seconds just to cope with current levels of immigration. So my argument is that immigration is not sustainable at these numbers. But you and Mr Corbyn don't think that's a problem, no?
No, it's not a question of me and Mr Corbyn. My opinion is that there should have been more houses built. Okay, and you're not focusing on employers that employ these, you know, in some cases illegal immigrants cheaply, especially in Kent, the hop picking and stuff, and in Lincolnshire, in the agricultural sector, they think nothing of employing those people. So perhaps the laws should be changed. So, you know, instead of keep focusing continuously on the immigrant over and over again, so we're all kind of looking at each other with you know, kind of fear. Why do you keep peddling this nonsense all the time?
Well, I tell you what, Tony.
It's great for this country.
I tell you what, mate.
Absolutely wonderful.
I tell you what. No, I mean, fine. You know, there are people that think this out there. I mean, and Tony, clearly you do. Let me just tell you that when the question is asked again and again in opinion polls, do you think we should be able to control the numbers of people coming into this country? It's between 75 and 80% in every single one of those opinion polls think we should have some degree of control over the numbers and the people that come into our country. And I would say to you, Tony, I disagree with you fundamentally about Corbyn. That is why he's doomed. He's doomed because he believes in continuing with the free movement of people. He's talked in the past about us all being world citizens. And Tony, I think, frankly, you know, if you're trying to become Prime Minister and you're only appealing effectively to 20% of the population who feel the same way as you do on what is the biggest single issue of the day, you might vote for him, Tony, but I'm sorry, I don't think that's going to work. But I thank you very much indeed for your strongly held views. We go north and we go to Thomas in Burnley. Thomas, hello.
Hiya, Nigel. It's a pleasure to speak to you.
Now, you come from a very old-fashioned Labour area, don't you?
Oh, yes, I do. That's why it caught me when you were talking about old places that voted Labour, because my dad's an old Labour voter.
Yeah.
And he's often talked about it, because I'm actually a paying member of UKIP myself.
Right.
I'm part of the UKIP Burnley Independent branch. And he's always told me he'll never vote Labour again because of what they've done to our town. You know, and various of the towns in East Lancashire, because deindustrialisation came eventually in the 1970s, and also a large wave of immigration came as well. And subsequently, our town is nothing compared to what it used to be, and it's hit communities here that very, very hard. You know, I mean, there's basically no communities left in this particular area of the country at all. You know, I think...
Thomas, I sense this. I remember in the referendum going into Bolton, going into the big town square in Bolton and meeting a crowd of people. I remember a woman grabbing my hands and saying, you know, why doesn't David Cameron come to our street and see what's happened? See what's happened to our, you know, our living standards in these northern towns. You're right. I mean, I just don't think Corbyn connects anymore there, does he?
No, the Labour Party does not connect with people here anymore. And I mean, it is a strong Labour area, is Burnley and most of East Lancashire, by all means.
Yes.
But I honestly believe that they're doomed in a place like this, because they've not represented us whatsoever. I mean, I don't mean to sound pessimistic, but most young people in towns like this feel like they have no future anymore. I mean, most of them leave by the time they've left school, you see. And I mean, I'm only 21, and I've observed my town through the eyes of an you know, the 21-year-old, I see no future here, so I feel the only alternative was to vote to leave the EU.
Well,
that's how a lot of people here feel.
Yeah, well, maybe, Thomas, if the story you're telling us from Burnley is very widely felt, and certainly my sense on the referendum tour was that a lot of people were feeling like this, maybe Paul Nuttall could be a real thorn in Jeremy Corbyn's side and could present the Labour Party with some very serious problems. I think he's got a chance of doing it. Thomas, thank you. We go next to Mylon in Chelsea. Good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. How are you?
I'm very well. What do you make of Mr. Corbyn?
Well, personally, I think well, you said it yourself, really. You hit the nail on the head. Donald Trump, Brexit, and all the rest of what else is going on.
Yep.
So I don't see no reason for him not to be the next leader, well, next Prime Minister, really, the way things are going at the moment in England.
Well,
with the Brexit you're talking about, I reckon it was a good thing. I voted for Brexit, and obviously from my company as well, I'm sure a lot of other people did. But in a sense whether Jeremy Corbyn is going to be a good leader, I reckon he'd be a fantastic leader for the country.
Do you really? I mean,
yep.
Okay.
I know I'm contradicting myself, but that's just my personal view, really.
Well, no. I mean, look, you know, there are plenty of people out there who want a Labour government and who supported Brexit too. You're absolutely right about that. But wasn't Corbyn's position himself a bit odd on this? Because he'd been against the European Union for over 30 years as a backbencher and then stood as a Labour leader saying we should vote Remain. Wasn't that a bit odd?
It is a bit odd, but that's what politics is all about. You've been in it for years, and you know you have to take one. Personally, I think he got pressured into saying they want to obviously remain and stay, and it'd be better for the people, and having open borders, and as you said, an international citizenship would be ideal. I don't really believe he meant any of that. Me personally, I don't really believe he meant any of that. I know,
but isn't that odd, man? Isn't that strange? We're told Corbyn could be... It's weird, isn't it, really? Because we're told that Theresa May backed the Remain side, but was really a leaver, and that means she's great as Prime Minister. And now you're telling me that Corbyn didn't really mean what he said in the referendum, because actually he'd been against the EU for his whole career. I mean, all I would say to you is, don't the victories of Trump and people like that, don't they suggest to you that perhaps what we want are leaders who say what they really think?
Of course we do, but that's politics for you. You should know that by now. I know how politics works. I've been in politics for the last 42 years.
Yeah.
But the situation still remains. We don't really know what's going to happen in March, do we? With this Brexit deal, do we? We don't.
No, we don't. Well, Mylon, the one thing 2016 has taught us, and you agree with me on this, is predicting the future in this game of politics is a very dangerous thing. You may be right. I don't think you are. We'll see. More of your calls coming up on this soon. The Unite leader, Len McCluskey, has suggested that if the opinion polls are still awful in 2019, that Corbyn may have to stand aside as leader. Do you think McCluskey's right, or that Corbyn is the right man for the job? What does Labour need to do? I'm Nigel Farage, here on LBC, and the time is 10:45.
This is LBC.
Ah, the sound of the sea. There's only one place you'll hear lawnmowers this far from land, because only Celebrity Cruises have up to half an acre of real, finely manicured lawns on board. Perfect for picnics or evening concerts under the stars. This is just one of many delightful surprises awaiting you on board a Celebrity Cruise. Unpack once and see the world. And if you like surprises, you'll love the sound of what's coming up in a few moments. Keep listening.
There are some office essentials you just can't live without. Get them all at Staples. Right now, there's 50% off the second ink cartridge when you buy two of the same. Buy one ink cartridge and get the second half price. Stock up and save on your ink cartridges today. Staples. Make more happen.
Luxurious things come to those who wait. Book a Celebrity Cruise before the end of February and you'll receive a free drinks package and up to £500 off selected sailings and staterooms. Why? Because right now the world is open and the sale is on. Visit celebritycruises.co.uk or contact your travel agent. Cruise Critic awarded, APTA and ATOL protected.
This wine is giving me lots of earth, strong notes of forest floor, bits of rubble, and down in the distance a great white stallion calling out to its mate. Yes, a most complex wine.
Put a cork in it. For wine without the faff, order at redorwhitetonight.com. Our experts make suggestions based on what you like, so the only choice you have to make is red or white tonight. Always drink responsibly.
How many tablets did you take this morning? On average, people over 55 say 4. That's over 100 a month. Well, at least for your painful joints, there's an alternative treatment. Voltarol 12-hour gel works deep in the joint to fight pain and inflammation all day long. Voltarol 12-hour gel. Let's hear it for the joy of movement. Ask your pharmacist.
Voltarol 12-hour Emigel P 2.32% gel contains diclofenac diethylammonium for relief of pain and inflammation. Always read the label.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC with Nigel Farage.
What to do about Jeremy? It all looked so good. Hundreds of thousands of people joining the Labour Party. He was going to storm to victory in the next election, and suddenly they're on 24% in the polls, and their biggest backer, the Unite Union, are saying unless things buck up before the next election, he may have to go. And a couple of your SMSs that have come in. One here from James. Corbyn now comes across as lacklustre, being totally out of touch and having no fire in his belly. Unlike you. All right, okay, fair enough, thank you. Message for Nigel. My family and I, 6 adults, were all Labour supporters. We all voted UKIP and Brexit because of immigration. Labour failed us, and Diane Abbott is even worse than Jeremy. And that's from Tony in Essex. And I have to say that several times now I've seen Diane Abbott appearing on big television interviews, heard her on radio interviews, and I get the feeling that in many ways she's actually insulting old Labour supporters who think immigration matters. It's as if they've said something that is deeply unpleasant. What does Dara in Hammersmith make of all of this? Dara, good evening.
Hello, Nigel. How are you?
I'm well. Tell me, are you a Corbyn man?
No, I'm not. I am a Labour Party member, actually, and I also supported Brexit. And one of the reasons why I don't support Corbyn and I support Brexit is because, you know, there's this big issue at the moment with free movement and immigration from the European Union. And the reason why I'm not in favour of free movement is because lots of people in my family, including my dad, who's a carpenter, my uncle, who's a plumber, and some of my other relatives, is that they've seen their wages undercut because there's been a mass influx of, you know, of cheap labour from the European Union, and therefore their wages have gone down. And I think the Labour Party is a party that I joined because they're a party of workers' rights. You know, I supported their policies on housing and education, of course, but that's the main thing that they were set up, you know, to exist for. That's what they're meant to be fighting for. So for Labour to support free movement and to turn a complete blind eye, you know, to this idea of workers being undercut because of free movement, I just think it shows that Corbyn is completely out of touch with the working class in this country.
Well, Dara, I agree with everything you've said. So how come you're still a Labour Party member then?
I agree with the core Labour values. Right. I think, like lots of, you know, Brexiteers in the north, I would agree with the ideas of, you know, public ownership of the railways, anti-austerity, workers' rights. It's just I don't agree with Corbyn. I think the problem with Corbyn and Diane Abbott and John McDonnell is that they're very idealistic. You know, they're almost like hippie socialists. They don't really connect with the concerns of the working class. You know, they want to stay in the single market. They're not concerned about immigration. And I think, Nigel, you know, Paul Nuttall and your party, I think they're going to take away so many votes from Labour because at the moment Corbyn is just not listening. I mean, Miliband was the same. Blair was the same, Gordon Brown was the same. They're not learning and they're not listening because I think they're stuck in this situation on Brexit where there's half of the party like me and, you know, half of the voters who will go to, you know, who will go out to UKIP if Labour support a so-called soft Brexit, which, you know, as far as I'm concerned, that's not Brexit at all. That's the same mistake.
So Dara, could you, as a paid-up Labour Party member, could you contemplate voting UKIP at the next general election?
You know what, I wouldn't want to because I agree with your party on Brexit and on immigration, but I'm not so sure about some of the stuff that your party has said on the NHS. And like I say, generally I would agree with with Labour on most issues. But if the next election is, an election about Brexit, Nigel, and I'm one of the hardest Brexiteers you'll meet,
Okay.
I think there's a possibility that I could vote UKIP. I mean, I'd probably vote Labour, but I wouldn't rule out.
Well, Dara, let me tell you, on the Brexit issue, and we're not discussing that this hour particularly, but on the Brexit issue, I am absolutely, completely convinced that if we do not get a democratic Brexit, meaning we've left the European Union, we've left the single market, we've taken back control of our borders, then I think the 2020 general election could be all about Brexit and finishing the job. So, let's just watch this space. Dara, thank you very much indeed. Next we go to Jean in Bellingham. Jean, good evening.
Good evening. Very nice to speak to you.
Hi there.
I believe very much in Jeremy Corbyn
Yes.
and Labour. I think there's no alternatives left. You're not to be elected anymore. I did vote for you in the last in the election, and I can't stand the Conservatives. And I think Jeremy Corbyn, he's a quiet man, and I think he's got things under control. Lots of people have voted to keep him where he is at the moment. Let him stay there. Let's have Labour back. Conservatives have ruined this country. And I look forward to him being Prime Minister.
Well, Jean, I don't for a minute, doubt that he's a very decent, polite, sort of non-backstabbing style politician who's been very consistent to his principles, in nearly 34 years that he's been in Parliament. But I think the problem is that so much of that Labour vote, traditional Labour vote, is what I would call a very patriotic vote. Fiercely believes in the country and support for the armed services. And here's a guy who couldn't bring himself to sing the national anthem when he was in St Paul's Cathedral for the 75th anniversary of the Battle of Britain, has appeared at times in the past to have much more sympathy with Irish Republicans than he had with the British Army, and basically supports open borders. And I mean, isn't that a problem, Jean, for him?
Oh, that really, really is a big problem. But, okay, we can put him down, we can say this, we can do that. He's a man, he's just a man, okay, he's running to be he's Labour leader, and he may be Prime Minister too, judging by what's going on in the world today, all these crazy things keep happening. And he probably will be. And you'd be a good one. I mean, I just think that, that he's put your money on him.
Well,
because there isn't anything else.
Well, you'd certainly get a shade of odds, Jean. That's absolutely right. Just as you would have done on Brexit this time last year and Trump. None of us know what's going to happen in the future. You think he's a very decent fella. You think he'd be a good leader. I'm just not convinced that he represents that patriotic old Labour voice enough. And I think they're drifting away from him. We've had calls tonight from Burnley and places like that, which have been Labour forever. Jean, I don't know. You don't know. We'll see. And thank you. Helen in Dartford. Good evening, Helen. What do you think?
Oh, hello. I'm just... I don't think things are going to stay like this in terms of opinions towards Corbyn.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that as the kind of implications of Brexit kick in, especially in the next year and further on.
What you mean when we all get richer?
No, quite the opposite. I think as we all get poorer.
Oh, right. Oh, God. Well, it's funny you should say that, Helen, because we're going to be discussing later on this evening the 5 big business groups in this country, nearly all of whom supported Remain and gave us dire warnings about what would happen, have all come out with a very positive statement for 2017. But you're obviously worried about it.
Well, I'm hearing things like that inflation's going to go up next year.
Well, let's hope it does, Helen. Let's hope it does. A little bit of inflation wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing for the economy. Deflation is actually a more serious problem for an economy, as any look at Japan over the last 20 years will tell you. So if it's a little bit of inflation, I'm not that worried about it.
So what's going to happen about all the kind of low-wage immigrants? What's going to happen? Are they going to be sent home or what? I mean,
nobody.
What's going to happen to them?
No, I mean, nobody at any point on the Leave side in the referendum said that we should overturn, a legal deal. People came here legally because they were allowed to do so. We're not talking about sending people back, but we are talking about having much stricter controls on who comes in the future. But I mean, Corbyn. I mean, look, you may be right. We could have a recession, not necessarily caused by Brexit. We could have a recession because of what's happening in the Eurozone. There are lots and lots of reasons why economies can go up or go down. But do you think if the economy goes down that Corbyn becomes the benefactor?
Well, yeah, I do, because I think as people's living standards go down, and as, there's a massive problem with poverty in this country, and, it's obviously people are going to go more to the left, aren't they?
Well, they may do. And certainly, if you're going leftwards towards Corbyn, you've got quite a long way to go, because he's a long way out there on the left. And I've got time for a last call on this subject. Just very quickly, Kaz in Hillingdon. Good evening, Kaz.
Good evening. How are you? All right?
I'm well. What do you think of Mr. Corbyn?
Yeah, I support him. I believe he's correct in many of his views, such as renationalisation. I believe we should renationalise certain services in the country.
Yep.
Such as the energy sector.
Yep.
And also, I believe that we shouldn't have left the European Union. It's a fool's errand, basically.
But we did, Kaz.
And, we've got the internet. And because of the internet, we have open borders anyway. So you've got all these American companies, they sell online, no one goes to the high street anymore.
Well,
the high street is being decimated, all the money leaves the country, and this is not because of immigrants, this is the internet, and we can't just leave the internet.
Well, no one, Kaz, nobody, again, in the Leave campaign did anything other than say that one of the reasons for leaving the failing European club was for us to go global. But look, I take your point, and actually, renationalising industries is something that is quite popular with a big segment of the population here. However, I'll tell you what I think. I think that McCluskey's right. I think Labour are in trouble with Corbyn as their leader. He does not appeal to what's called the patriotic working classes. But I think Labour's problem is deeper than that, because however many MPs resign, however many by-elections are fought, whatever happens, Corbyn can't be removed, because he's got a new Labour Party membership that completely support him. Many of them would rather follow their own intellectual purist vision of socialism than they would win the next election. The only people that can ditch Corbyn, actually, I believe, are the trade unions. Thank you very much for that. Well, the Chief of Police in Cologne did something very controversial. He stopped 1,200 North Africans from going into the centre of Cologne. Remember that a year ago there were open mass sex attacks on the streets of Cologne, particularly outside the station. He's been condemned and criticised by many on the left, by the Green Party. They've said that racial profiling is completely and utterly wrong. But ask yourself a question. If you had been the Chief of Police in Cologne, what would you have done with New Year's Eve coming up? Did you make the right bold decision, or was it just plain wrong?
On FM, online, on your mobile, and on digital radio. Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 11 o'clock, the Ministry of Defence has confirmed the death of a British soldier in central Iraq. It happened in an area about 100 miles northwest of Baghdad. LBC's Philip Chrysikos reports.
A spokesman says the soldier was with the 2nd Battalion, the Duke of Lancaster's regiment, and died in Taji, but the death was not a result of enemy activity. The MOD says the soldier's family has been told, and relatives have asked for a period of grace before the name is released. It follows what's being called an incident that is currently under investigation.
Police in Turkey looking for a gunman who killed 39 people in Istanbul have carried out raids and arrested 12 people. 8 others are already being held in connection with the nightclub attack early on New Year's Day. The Islamic State group has claimed responsibility. Francois Al-Azmar says he was lucky to survive.
I was hiding behind the table, sitting on the floor, but my shoulder must have been exposed. He was shooting us on the floor. He wasn't shooting in the air, but towards the floor where we were lying. If I'd been lying on the floor, I would have been shot all along my body.
Police are holding 4 men in connection with a hit and run in Oldham that's killed 2 girls. One died on New Year's Eve. Her younger cousin has since died in hospital. Met Police murder detectives have named a man stabbed last week as Ernest Kalawa. The 24-year-old from Southwark was stabbed to death in Peckham in South London on Friday. A man's been arrested and bailed. There's concern about how 48,000 new garden villages in England will be supported. It's after the government approved 14 bids to develop new communities. Councillor Mike Brown lives near Stratford-upon-Avon, one area earmarked for building. He's disappointed there's not more money.
What we was hoping for was more money for infrastructure. And what we've seen this morning is derisory, £6 million over the whole schemes over 2 years. We're back where we started.
And new US research has found alcohol abuse can also bring a heightened risk of heart attack and heart failure. It increases the number of health issues already related to drink, including high blood pressure and diabetes. LBC weather: cold tonight, frost and fog by morning and a low of -5. It's wet in the far north for Tuesday, brighter in the south and east, a high of 7 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Charles Rowe.
This is LBC from Global. Leading Britain's conversation with Nigel Farage. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC.
So was that Cologne Police Chief right? Was he right to stop, to detain, to turn around 1,200 North Africans for fear there could be a repeat of the mass sex attacks that were seen on the streets of Cologne on New Year's Eve in 2015? Clearly, he used what is known as racial profiling. Was that a monstrous, deeply racist, wrong thing to do? Or was it absolutely necessary, given that Germany is in a state of turmoil, particularly after the attacks that took place in Berlin just before Christmas? Indeed, have you been racially profiled in this country? Have you been unfairly treated by the police? Do you think this is wrong, or did the man simply have no option? Well, it's worth remembering that if we go back to New Year's Eve 2015, it took several days for this story to begin to appear. And it first appeared on a news site called Breitbart. Now, you've probably heard a fair bit about Breitbart this year, given that Steve Bannon, one of Trump's right-hand men, was the managing director of it. And it's been criticised and condemned and called all sorts of things. But they broke the news story that something truly extraordinarily awful had happened outside Cologne train station, and there had been deliberate, willful attempts by state broadcasters in Germany not to tell the story. So just remind ourselves of what happened. Openly in the streets, there were people being sexually attacked, assaulted, robbed. There were in total 1,300 reported crimes that took place that night in the German city of Cologne. And the argument raged. We were told that it was wrong to put this down to immigrants that had come into Germany that year, but actually it turned out that in the vast majority of cases that was the problem. And I remember myself getting caught up in this debate when I said that I thought that if you had large numbers of young males that come from other countries, countries where in many cases women frankly are not much better than second-class citizens, then I said, I'm afraid you have to expect this kind of thing. Now, of course, I was denounced and called all the names under the sun. But something is happening in Germany, because the once impregnable Mrs. Merkel has had a pretty bad year. She's been criticised and condemned for allowing over 1 million people into the country without the ability to check the backgrounds of any of them. And that's why the police chief did what he did. Interesting to note that one of the people that was apprehended and asked to produce papers turned out to be a terrorist suspect. And the German police, I think, are very pleased and very happy about that. But is it acceptable for the police to stop people simply because of their race or their ethnicity? It's a hugely contentious issue. It's a debate that is going to rage in Germany. They have a general election coming up in September, of this year, and I'm guessing opinions on this are going to be pretty strong. We start with Ryan in Tower Hill. Ryan, what do you make of it?
Firstly, Happy New Year, Nigel. It's an absolute pleasure
And to
to
you.
meet you. Right, like you, I'm married to a German. My wife comes from just outside Frankfurt.
Yep.
And we just got back from New Year's celebrations. As you have said, the problem that people don't appreciate outside of Germany is what's going on there on a daily, on an hourly basis. Public swimming pools, the sex offences that are taking place in universities and schools. The people of Germany are currently terrified of what's going on. They have no control over what's happened. They were once a very passive left-wing country, as you well know, but that is beginning to change, and it's beginning to change in a way that I've never seen before. The German government are currently, as you probably know, are going through like a reassurance package for the population, especially in places like Bavaria. I mean, I was down there beginning of the year skiing. The demographics of the country have changed beyond recognition. I feel quite vulnerable in the streets of places like Garmisch-Partenkirchen, Munich. The whole country has changed. And did the police do the right thing? Damn right they did. Because the people here are not aware of what's going on there. Especially women. It's women that are terrified. And if the police don't do this, then there's no hope. There really isn't.
Well, Ryan, I have to say, I do agree with the part of your analysis, because whatever we say about Germany from 1870 to 1945, the fact is that post-1945 Germany has been a very peace-loving, very family-orientated, in many ways, a sort of very pacifist, as you say, quite left-wing sort of country in terms of attitudes. And it's always struck me as being a very settled, contented kind of place. And I am with you, Ryan. I think a lot of people in Germany are now scared. A lot of people in Germany are angry. And I think that Mrs. Merkel is seen to be the target of much of it. Ryan, they're completely supporting what the Chief of Police in Cologne did. Mark in Walthamstow, what do you think?
Well, I'd just like to start off by sort of bringing something up from last hour, where you called Corbyn unpatriotic for not singing the national anthem. But if I remember correctly, on Remembrance Service this year, you were taking a photo with Donald Trump without poppy on.
Mark, you can have a go for some cheap shots if you want. Actually, the week before that,
I don't think it's a cheap shot. I think what you did was a cheap shot.
Yeah.
But if you want me to talk about the current thing, I will.
Well, Mark, I mean, the week before that, I'd actually led a service of remembrance at the Tietval Memorial on the Somme. So anyway, let's move on.
Fair enough. I think that racial profiling, although probably a bad thing, it harasses a lot of people. There is a potential that it could have helped in this situation. However, I think that what would be a better call in general is to put more police on the streets in Germany.
Yeah, and indeed they did do this, of course, this year, but there's a limit to how many police there are in a country. Yeah, I mean, I get your point, but isn't there a problem when not only do you have to have more police on the streets, but in fact in many German cities on New Year's Eve they ban fireworks? I mean, I've been in Germany on New Year's Eve and fireworks there were a massive thing. Fireworks banned in many places. Concrete barriers, erected in many areas to try and stop another attempt, at a lorry killing. I mean, do you see, Mark, why people in Germany are very upset with Mrs. Merkel?
I see why people may. I think there are a few people that are upset with Mrs. Merkel. I think that contrary to our country, however, Mrs. Merkel has potentially done the only thing that is going to stop the problems that are arising in the Middle East, and that is to take in people who need it. Like, okay, tell me, what percentage of the million people that entered into that country that year were then in those criminal acts at that time? I will guarantee you it's less than 0.01%.
Well, I mean...
However, I think that... Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't really go on.
No, Mark, I take that point. However, the contrary point is that it only took one person to take control of that lorry and to kill 12 people. It took 8 people to launch the Paris massacres. It doesn't take very many bad people for an entire religion or perhaps an entire race to get a very bad name. And I completely understand that. I've never, ever tried to make any other point. I think the anger is that nobody that came into Germany was profiled in any way at all before they came, and now they are being profiled by the police, but there were no proper checks and no knowledge on who these people were. And I do think, Mark, that I think Ryan was on the money, the previous caller, who knows Germany well. I think there is a growing sense of anger. Anyway, Mark, I thank you. And, more police on the streets, I get that, but maybe they're going to need very, very many more police on the streets. And a couple of SMSs coming in already on this. Vicky in Derby says, in regards to profiling, if it stopped one single rape, it was worth it. Racial profiling, I'd call it sexual assault prevention. Germany have opened their arms to everyone, including those who have no respect for humanity. Martin in Eastbourne. So at the moment, people are tweeting and texting and ringing in, and the majority are saying that what the police chief did was right. David in Manchester, what do you think?
Good evening, Nigel, and an extremely happy new year to you.
And to you.
I totally support the police in this, 200%. I think they did absolutely correct. I would have gone further. What I've read about this time last year, there were over 1,600 incidents. Now, there were still incidents this year, yesterday, if you like, but from what I'm gathering, there was roughly about 160. So it was 10% of what it was this time last year. Now, if that is not a result in itself, I don't know what is. But the police, from a lot of these liberalites that keep condemning the police, they're damned if they do, they're damned if they don't. If the police hadn't have done anything, nothing whatsoever, yeah? Let's say that was in this country, but it wouldn't be. It's happening at the moment, as we know, in Germany. If the police didn't do anything this time, this year, what they did last year, if they did absolutely nothing at all, and they had the same amount of incidents, or even an increase, more than likely an increase in incidents, they would be absolutely slated by the very same people who were saying that they were intrusive. So really what these people need to do is butt out and, don't make assumptions unless you've done the job yourself, unless you've actually been there. Do you know what I mean, Nigel?
Yeah, no. Look, David, I understand what you're saying, and you're right. The number of assaults and arrests were about 10% this year in Cologne of what they were last year. Was that a result of turning away North Africans? Was it a result of better policing? Was it a little bit of both? And that's for all of you out there to make your own minds up on. But I completely understand, where you are and what you're saying. But I'm keen to know on this subject of racial profiling. The police in this country have been accused repeatedly of using it. I know in parts of London it's been a real issue, and we've had certain communities feeling really angry about it. So please, let me know if you've seen this happening in this country, and just think, he may be accused of doing the wrong thing, but we didn't get the mass sex attacks of last year. And can you honestly say that if you were in his position, you would have done anything different at all? I'm Nigel Farage, here on LBC, and it's 11:15.
LBC.
Cancer is happening right now. Claire, a research nurse in Manchester, is working to beat cancer right now.
Just come out of clinic. It's been really nice because one of our patients just finished a clinical trial. It had shown some real positive results. They've got their daughter's wedding coming up. It looks like now that they can go and get their outfit, get the hat, but, being able to go in there with a lot more positive feelings.
We are working to beat cancer right now. Help us beat it sooner. Search Cancer Research UK to donate.
From an amazing chorus to perfect silence. Discover where extraordinary happens with Royal Caribbean. If you book one all-inclusive cruise fare, you'll get another half price. Plus, there's 50% off kids' fares too. Visit royalcaribbean.co.uk or contact your travel agent. Book by the 6th of March. Saving is for stateroom cruise fares only on selected 2017 European sailings. Conditions and exclusions apply. Atoll protected.
Right, your car's all ready. Great. Who's that sticking out of the engine?
Oh, yes, Simon. He's just giving our thorough last check. He does get stuck in. Right, grab a leg.
Oh, okay.
Come on, Simon.
We know every Nissan back to front. So for total peace of mind, visit Nissan's used car event from the 27th of December to the 22nd of January. Get a deposit contribution of £500 or even £1,000 on X-Trail, plus 2 years servicing on selected nearly new vehicles bought with Nissan Finance. 9.9% APR representative, subject to status and over 18s. Participating dealers. T's and C's apply. See nissanusedcars.co.uk. Google Nissan Cared For to find your nearest dealer.
What if your weekly family shop could take you on your annual family holiday? What if your daily commute could help you go somewhere rather more interesting? What if topping up your car could help you top up your tan? With the British Airways American Express credit card, your purchases will earn you Avios that could really take you places. Search BA Amex to find out more. Representative 22.9% APR variable. Applicants must be 18 or over. Approval subject to status. Conditions and exclusions apply.
I'm Nick Ferrari. Thank you for listening to LBC in 2016.
Prime Minister, why don't you just get up a little earlier? Why don't the businessmen and women just get up half an hour earlier and come up by train anyway, rather than spend all those billions of pounds?
Well, I can assure you, Nick, that I did get up
No, I know
this
you
morning
did,
in order to come and do your programme.
And I'm very grateful. I'll be back leading Britain's conversation at breakfast tomorrow from 7 a.m. on LBC.
Well, it's difficult always with numbers to work out what the truth of it is, but the official figures for 2015 for sexual assaults in Cologne were that 500 women were recorded as victims of sexual assault and 28 were raped. Now, that's part of 1,300 incidents, and we're talking there, of course, about theft, antisocial behaviour, etc. There are some suggestions that the number of sexual assaults this year was as low as 2, although there were a total of 160 crimes. So whichever way you look at it, the numbers were down drastically. And the police, well, they really did go to quite remarkable lengths, including one train that was actually coming into Cologne train station, on which police intelligence told them there were 300 North Africans on board. The train was actually stopped and turned back and sent to where it came from before it even reached the destination of the main train station at Cologne. So the police were not messing about with this, but there are many in Germany who think it's outrageous, who think it's a move back towards racism in Germany. It is a very, very hot topic in that country. But I would suggest also it's a hot topic in this country because the police here are often accused of racial profiling and told that it is wrong. We next go to Antonia in South Devon. Antonia, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Farage. First of all, I'd like to say you are using.
I think we've just. I know you were about to tell me your my fortune there, and that's not the reason. But the line didn't work. Could we please get a fresh line, Antonia, and we will put you back on the show. Meanwhile, we go to Grace in Ealing. Grace, good evening.
Good evening and Happy New Year.
Thank you, and to you. How do you view this, Grace?
I think that this is very complex in that we need to understand the two different issues of Muslims and Islam. I personally am deeply concerned about people who are coming as refugees from the Middle East or from Africa because they are coming from conditions that we cannot imagine, and no human being should have to live in those conditions. However, I am also aware that the Quran does contain extremely abhorrent, violent things. The thing is that most Muslims are either unaware of or are completely ignoring those things. So we need to have a more intelligent, sensible, complex strategy that enables us not to just, keep everyone out, because that's unfair on the vast majority who are innocent and deserve help, but at the same time to be able to monitor those who do come in. We need to look at it more intelligently than just saying let's keep them all out or let's let them all in, because most Muslims are unaware of or ignoring the very dangerous parts of Islam.
The problem here, Grace, ISIS boasted back in sort of early 2015 that they would use the migrant crisis coming across the Mediterranean to flood Europe's shores with their fighters. I mean, they were very open about it, very boastful about it. And I remember when David Cameron went out to Jordan to visit a refugee camp and said that we would take some refugees from these camps. He was warned by the education minister in Jordan who was showing him around, do be aware, Mr. Cameron, that 2% of these people will be ISIS supporters. So whichever way we do this, Grace, I agree with you. It's difficult, very, very difficult. But the last thing I would want to do is for us to go to war with Islam. You're absolutely right about that. That would be a complete catastrophe. But I think in terms of who we let into the country, we're going to have to be very, very strict indeed. We just cannot afford for a handful of people even coming in from those countries to cause the kind of harm that we saw in Berlin, let alone what happened in Istanbul on New Year's Eve. And so, Grace, I think we're going to have to be tough about this, don't you?
I think that we need to think more about monitoring rather than just keeping people out. I think to some extent you're right, but I do think we should take into account that a lot of people are coming from extreme poverty or having had their homes all, completely blown to pieces. And so just to keep everyone out is very inhumane. They're human beings just like we are, and we have a responsibility to help them. Most of them are innocent, but we should have very, very good monitoring, and more of us and Muslims themselves need to know in detail about the danger within the Quran. I think if Muslim parents could be informed more about the Quran, because many don't know about it, they haven't studied it in detail, they've just been brought up into it. If they were to not raise their children into this dangerous ideology, then young people would be less likely to become radicalised later on.
Well, and equally, you make a good point there, Grace, that radicalisation and dangerous people haven't just come in from across the Mediterranean since 2015. We've got people born in this country, raised in this country, who've been radicalised, and that's been happening in schools, and it's been happening in prisons. So you're quite right, this is not simply about those that are coming in. I just think there is a feeling that those that are coming in are adding perhaps to a problem that is there already. Now, we've got the phone line back. Antonia in South Devon, good evening.
Hello, is the line better now?
It certainly is. Yes, far away, please.
Okay. So I believe that you are actually using sexism and acts of sexual assault to further your actually xenophobic and quite racist rhetoric. I don't think you actually do care about sexual assault survivors and what is going on. I think that you are using it to further your own political agenda.
All right. Okay, I'm sexist. All right, well, that's fine. Let's just sort of accept that for a minute, shall we? I'm sexist, but...
I actually didn't say that.
But what happened... Antonia, isn't there a problem here? If we're really going to confront this, that actually, wasn't I right last year when I said that if you allow into a country a very large number of young males from countries in which women culturally aren't even treated as well as being second-class citizens, that you're going to have a problem?
I think sexual assault and sexism is a wide problem. I also think there's a massive problem with sexual assault on campuses in this country, walking down the street on catcalling. It certainly isn't just immigrants who are catcalling women in the street now, is it? And I think if you want to have a very open and honest conversation about sexism, you will realise that it is not a problem of immigrants. Immigrants are not to blame for sexism. Yes, there is a problem in many countries in the world with how women are treated, but there is also a problem here that you are glossing over.
I don't think, look, whatever problems there are in this country, I don't think they even compare to many parts of North Africa or Saudi Arabia, where a woman can't even drive a motor car. In Riyadh, they're banned from doing it.
I am aware, and I would love to see you at marches against FGM and campaigning for these women, or actually listening to the women themselves, rather than blaming immigrants, rather than putting all of your problems on immigrants, which is what you do so well, and is what actually won you the election.
So you mentioned FGM. Tell me what communities FGM is taking place in, Antonia.
Well, I'm sure you're aware that it is also happening in London.
It is happening in London, but within which communities?
Personally, I would say it's more of a regional issue that was dictated more by actually certain countries rather than an entire religion. I'm sure you will disagree and blame Islamic extremism, Islamism, or whatever it is you are referring to the religion as now. But I think if you do actually genuinely care about sexual assault survivors, about these issues, then actually open your eyes and you will see that blaming immigrants for them is going to do nothing.
Well,
nothing but win you another.
Antonia, I have actually, and UKIP, when I led it, actually did campaign very strongly on the FGM issue. And I'll tell you what made us really, really quite angry. And this is the opposite to the potential problem of the police racially profiling people in Britain or Germany and elsewhere. But it's this, that despite the fact that thousands of cases of FGM are taking place in our country every single year, only one person so far has been charged and gone to court, and they have not received a custodial sentence. So not one person has gone to prison for performing these acts. And I think the feeling, Antonia, is that actually the authorities in this country have been soft-peddling on these issues for fear of being called racist. So look, we can disagree, perhaps, Antonia, in terms of what we think the main priorities are, but believe me, we both want a better and fairer world. And I thank you very much for your points and for your call. And we go next to Kaleem in Nottingham. Good evening, Kaleem.
Good evening, Nigel.
Hi, what do you make of it then?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Well, I think that, this sort of problem that's arisen from the racial profiling, I think racial profiling is a bad thing, but in this case, I think you can't really blame the police officer, because majority of these attacks have been from people from places like North Africa, the Middle East and everything. And this isn't just the thing with the religion, it's the thing with the culture as well, because you see it on Facebook posts and everything. They're saying it's not the religion, it's the culture. And that doesn't verify, that doesn't mean that what they're doing is not wrong. It just means that we need to, that these globalist things like the EU that bring in thousands of these people all the time, they need to be stopped, and we need to sort of go back to our individualist ways, and we need to stop importing thousands of these people where Sharia law is their law. Sharia law, is a system where there are people, there are women who get stoned to death for being raped. It is horrible, and we are letting in more of these people. I'm not saying they're all bad, because that would be an idiotic statement. What I'm saying is that we need to let in less of these people, and you will soon see these violent attacks going down and down and down.
Well, I hope that's right, Kaleem. Although, as I did say a few minutes ago, there is actually a problem with radicalisation that's gone on within this country from British-born people. And if we think back to the 7/7 bombings, these are people who've been born and raised in this country. So, absolutely, I think that we should be ensuring, as should the European Union, which we're going to leave, thank goodness, but, we wish them well. We should be trying to make sure that bad people are not coming to our shores, but we have to recognise that there is actually a problem that exists within our own countries as well. But on racial profiling, the problem is, isn't it? Say there was a big scare in London, and a friend of mine, fishing mate of mine, who's a Muslim, good friend of mine, what happens if he and his family are stopped just because they're of Muslim appearance? That's the worry, isn't it? The worry is that by trying to do the right thing from the police's perspective in terms of reducing crime, you could perhaps offend parts of the community or risk radicalising parts of the community who actually at this moment in time are on your side. I don't know. It's not easy. It's not easy. Most people who are calling in and texting in are saying they think the Chief of Police did the right job. I'm Nigel Farage on LBC. It's 11:30. Here with the news headlines is Charles Ray.
A British soldier has died in Iraq, but no enemy was involved. The Ministry of Defence says it's investigating what it calls an incident in Taji. 4 men are being held on suspicion of causing the deaths of 2 girls in Oldham by dangerous driving. 11-year-old Zanita Krakova has died in hospital after crossing the road with her 12-year-old cousin, who died at the scene on New Year's Eve. Turkish police investigating a nightclub gun attack have carried out raids and made 12 arrests. 39 people were killed at the venue in Istanbul Istanbul early on New Year's Day. LBC weather, cold and frost or fog tonight, a low of -5, wet in the far north for Tuesday, brighter in the south and east with a high of 7 degrees.
This is LBC.
When we make the right decision once, life can be a lot simpler. That's why we created Flipper. One simple decision that means you never overpay for energy. Throughout the year, we compare energy tariffs on your behalf and flip you onto the best deal. Sign up once, pay a flat fee once a year, and put energy bills out of your mind once and for all. Sign up now at flippercommunity.com and never overpay for energy again. Auto renewal after 1 year. Conditions apply.
Right, your car's all ready. Great. Who's that sticking out of the engine? Oh, yes, Simon. He's just giving our thorough last check. He does get stuck in. Yeah. Right, grab a leg. Oh, okay.
Come on, Simon. We know every Nissan back to front. So for total peace of mind, visit Nissan's used car event from the 27th of December to the 22nd of January. Get a deposit contribution of £500 or even £1,000 on X-Trail, plus 2 years servicing on selected nearly new vehicles bought with Nissan Finance. 9.9% APR representative, subject to status and over 18s. Participating dealers. T's and C's apply. See nissanusedcars.co.uk. Google Nissan Cared For to find your nearest dealer.
Cancer is happening right now. Gail in Newcastle is hearing from her doctor right now.
The biopsy has shown some mischief going on there. We class this as what we call a pre-invasive cancer. So the bad news is we've found something there. The good news is we've found it before it's turned into a full-blown cancer. It's relatively simple and straightforward to treat for you, and we will get it fixed for you.
We are working to beat cancer right now. Help us beat it sooner. Search Cancer Research UK to donate.
Whether you're saving up for a new playroom for the kids or a tropical adventure to see some real cheeky monkeys, the money you're putting aside is perfectly safe, protected by the FSCS. Should anything happen to your bank, building society or credit union, it's completely automatic, free of charge, and you'll normally get your money back within 7 days. You'll probably never need us, but it's good to know we're here. To check the limit and that you're fully covered, search FSCS Protected.
Nigel Farage on LBC.
So the boss of the Cologne police gets tough and stops 1,200 North Africans from going into the centre of town, fearing the sexual attacks that had happened on New Year's Eve the year before. I think the reason this is happening is because Mrs. Merkel is in trouble. In fact, I think the European Union is in trouble. Look what happened with that terrible attack in Berlin with the lorry. The man that drove it got away, and because of Schengen and the free movement of people in Europe, he went to France, then he went to Italy. The most wanted man in Germany was free to move across Europe completely unchecked. So there are big debates about free movement, security, terrorism, and Merkel is under political pressure. And I say that not just because there is a newish German party called the AfD, the Alliance for Deutschland, who are certainly on 15% nationally in the opinion polls, and in the eastern parts of Germany, they're on 25 to 30% in the polls. But equally, the Conservative Party in Germany, which is called the CDU, but in Bavaria, there is a sister party called the CSU, and it's pretty clear that quite a big gap has been opening up between the CDU and the CSU, and there are many mutterings, within Mrs. Merkel's own Conservative Party. So I think that, allowing 1 million people in a very short space of time has changed German public opinion. Indeed, it's changed the mood, I think, of many German people. And that is why the police chief acted, in my opinion, in the way that he did. The question is, was it the right thing to do? Did that massive reduction in the number of crimes justify it, or is racial profiling a dangerous thing to do? Joshua in Huddersfield, tell us what you think.
Good evening, Nigel. Happy New Year.
And to you.
Thank you. Well, what I'd like to say is I think most people would react on an emotional basis instantly, probably subconsciously, just because you hear the term racial profiling and you think, looking at people's skin colour, that's racist, which, in some senses, yes, it is. But if you stop and think in a pragmatic sense, well, what in the interests of the majority of people, what's in the interests of public safety. If it means you have to single out people because of the colour of their skin, because they are, as was shown in 2015, that because the people of that from North Africa and the Middle East are several 100% more likely to commit that kind of crime at this time of year in this particular place, then it's something that has to be done out of the interests of safety, whether it's nice or not.
Yeah, I think this is a question of culture, isn't it? I don't think it's about skin colour. I think it's about culture. And I think many of these countries treat women in a completely different way to the way that we treat women in the United Kingdom. Isn't that really the point?
Well, yes, exactly. And it just so happens that the vast majority of people who hold those cultural values have a different skin colour to people from Western, Eastern Europe. And they've obviously been invited in their millions to come to Germany, Italy, France, and thankfully we've avoided quite a large wave of it, and now we're starting to see all the problems unravel. And I think it's really depressing what's going on in many European countries, particularly Sweden. And it's not the indigenous population that's doing it. It's people who've come in the last 5 years.
No, I think Sweden's very worrying. And Brussels, believe me, and I've worked in Brussels for 17 years, I've seen that in downtown Brussels, for single women to be walking down those streets after 8, 9 o'clock at night, they get pestered constantly at best. Joshua, I'm with you. I'm quite depressed in many ways about what's happening. Lots of you telling us that, racial profiling actually does work, and that the chief of police in Cologne had absolutely no option but to do it. But I'm very keen to hear the other argument too. And I'm going next to Ahmed in Chelsea. Ahmed, what do you think?
Yeah, good evening, Nigel.
Good evening.
Good to speak to you.
What do you think about this, Ahmed?
Yeah, I personally think racial profiling doesn't work. I was just speaking to your producer. For the simple reason, because we've tried it here in the UK, the MEP has obviously tried it many times. It hasn't worked. I mean, they've publicly acknowledged that. And if you look at the actual interaction with drugs, crime prevention and racial profiling, we've stopped and searched people in the past. It hasn't reduced crime, the slightest. As a matter of fact, it just simply doesn't work. It creates a lot of public anger. It creates a lot of negative attitudes towards law enforcement and not towards the authorities, and also it creates a lot of animosity. I just don't think there's got to be better techniques in terms of maybe having stronger police presence on the streets.
Well, I get that. I get that. The animosity point, and I mentioned it myself a few minutes ago. I'm old enough to remember the Brixton riots of 1981, and what was the key cause of that huge divide, that gulf that had opened up between the police and the West Indian community in Brixton. It was something called the sus laws. It was the ability of the police to stop people and check them and ask them questions, and the black community felt they were being singled out for this. They were being, in modern terms, racially profiled. I get that. But the problem, Ahmed, is you're the second caller tonight to say, well, we need more police. Who's going to pay for all of this? Who is going to pay for it?
I appreciate we've had all the funding cuts to the next budget, but I think it needs to come from the public first, because it is part of our security, and I think security is an essential part of what we have to. I don't think people like paying taxes, but it's going to have to come from the taxpayers' money, I'm afraid, because if you want protection, if you want security, we've just got to pay for it.
Do you think morally what the Cologne Chief of Police did was the right thing or not?
I think it's immoral to some degree because of the fact that he just painted everybody with the same brush. I understand he's just trying to catch a few bad apples, but it just basically upsets everybody else. And just to say, we're just going to select people to stop people on based on their skin color, just so we could stop one person from having trying to commit a crime. I just think it turns everybody else against you. There has to be better techniques. I mean, the Met has tried. We've got good techniques in the UK. We have, we've reduced crime using other methods. It doesn't, need to come down to racial profiling.
Well, certainly as Bernard Hogenhau's term in charge of the Met ends, officially, crime in London is down 18% during his tenure. Right or not, there's a lot we are getting right here, and I agree with that. And certainly one of the reasons why we have not, touch wood, been quite as vulnerable to terrorist attacks in the way that we've seen in Belgium and in France and in Germany is that I do think our intelligence services, I genuinely believe our intelligence services are doing a great job in dealing with those people already here in this country. The difficulty in Germany is they've let a huge number of people in about whom they know almost nothing. Ahmed, I take your points. You're the voice of moderation and the voice of reason. I'm just not quite sure how we're actually going to pay for it all. That's all that worries me. But thank you very much indeed. And next we go to Liam in Liverpool. Good evening, Liam.
Hello, Nigel.
What do you make of all this, Liam?
Well, I think, of course, the police are right to turn these people around, for one. I don't want to use a cliche, but if a different demographic is committing crimes disproportionately to the extent that we did see last New Year's Eve, it's simply common sense to just be much more wary of that demographic in terms of those crimes. It's not racist, it's not bigotry. Instead, this demographic of people clearly, and I don't mean to generalise, but they clearly have less respect for women and our law and order than anyone who wants to, join into and assimilate into our culture should have. As you rightfully said before, it's a wider issue about the policies of Merkel, which have made the entirety of Europe less safe as a result. I saw a political cartoon earlier today which criticised you in particular for supposedly politicising the recent Berlin truck attack. But to me, it seems like the left not only still support these failing policies, but also they want to stop criticism of them, either through methods like I described of you politicising them, or through calling people racists and bigots.
Well, but Liam, I mean, come on. I actually predicted this. I said in the European Parliament in April and May 2015, we should not allow our compassion to threaten our civilised way of life. And when New Year's celebrations in Germany stop having fireworks, need concrete blocks put up everywhere, and have to stop people coming into the cities, something has gone fundamentally wrong, hasn't it? Fundamentally wrong.
Yeah.
Liam, one quick question for you. You've said it's the pragmatic right thing to do. If it causes offence to some people, is it still worth doing?
Oh, of course. Oh,
of
yeah.
course.
I mean, we have a right to offend people. It's fundamental free speech. But what the left seems to want to do is take that away from us.
Liam, a very clear point of view. Thank you very much indeed. And before the break, we go to Adam in Birmingham. Adam, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. How are you?
I'm good. What do you make of all this?
Right. I really honestly cannot quite believe that we have so many people ringing in and saying that this is such a good thing. I honestly really can't quite believe this sort of thing. I mean, top keck and all, but the fact is that, what we're doing now and what people are saying is straight out of what's happened in Nazi Germany, for instance. And, what next? Are we going to start making people wear armbands to identify them as to who they are?
Well, I hope not.
Right? Hello?
Yeah, no, I mean, Adam, I'm saying I very much hope not. Absolutely.
I mean, racial profiling to the extent that we're actually picking out people for the colour of their skin, it's absolutely outrageous. I can't quite believe that sort of thing. And, the problem with this is the rise of extremist politics. And we've seen extremist politics because you talk about it all the time. But with extremist politics that have come around, and for instance, you could take BREXIT, you stood behind that poster, and many people widely condemned you for doing so, especially in the midst of the Joe Cox incident with Donald Trump. Of course, he's going to build a wall and make Mexico pay for it. I even know, for instance, that you're quite a big fan of Alex Jones from InfoWars. This guy's the epitome of extremism. And this is a person who's 9/11 an inside job, who says that the government puts chemicals in the water to turn freaking frogs gay, and he called Michelle Obama the first.
I don't. Hang on. I don't think Alex Jones has got anything to do with this conversation, or frankly, with me. But I mean, let's get back to the issue. You fear that racial profiling is taking us back to very dark days where we segment people and where we discourage integration. Yeah.
Yes, I think so, but I think it's absolutely clear that the fact that we're actually picking out people for the colour of their skin or where they came from, I mean, we're going down very, very scary times.
Well, it is scary, but equally, Adam, equally scary, shocking, appalling is what happened in the streets of Cologne on New Year's Eve last year. I mean, hard to believe that in modern-day Europe something like this could have happened, isn't it?
I mean, but come on, Nigel, when you whip up this sort of fear, and when you say that...
No, I'm not whipping up any fear. I'm just giving you the figures. I'm telling you what happened on New Year's Eve 2015.
And so if I told you that our country is more safe than it's ever been before, you wouldn't believe me, but that's actually true.
I just said to the last caller that crime is down in London, that I think our security services are doing a fantastic job, and one of the reasons I'm so thrilled that we voted Brexit is we will have, I hope and believe, much more control over the people that come into our country to make sure that we stay as safe as possible. Yeah, absolutely. But the situation, Adam, in Germany and in Sweden isn't like that. And I think, you can try, if you want, to deny the link between the increases in sexual crime and the people coming into the country. And I'm not putting this down to race, but I am putting it down to culture. There are a lot of these countries in which women, as a matter of course, are treated entirely differently to the way they would be expected to be treated in our country. And that, I think, is a huge, huge problem. Adam, I thank you very much for your call and for your point of view. I'm Nigel Farage, here on LBC. The time is 11:47.
This is LBC.
New year. Exciting, isn't it? New beginnings, fresh starts, daily commutes. Yep, you heard right. At the Vauxhall Bonus Tag event from the 27th of December to the 16th of January, there's up to 22% off selected models across the range, with many including features such as touchscreen display. So roll on the New Year commute. Visit your local Vauxhall retailer or search Vauxhall Bonus Tag event. Participating retailers only, selected stock only, limited period. Registrations by the 31st of January 2017. Offer not available with any other offers. Full T's and C's apply.
From onboard surfing to off-road driving. Discover where extraordinary happens with Royal Caribbean. If you book one all-inclusive cruise fare, you'll get another half price, including our best ever drinks package. Visit royalcaribbean.co.uk or contact your travel agent. Book by the 6th of March. Saving is for stateroom cruise fares only on selected 2017 European sailings. Conditions and exclusions apply. Atoll protected.
The BT Great January sale on broadband, TV and mobile is now on, with savings of up to 33%. Get a great deal on the UK's most powerful Wi-Fi signal versus major broadband providers. An exceptional price with our top TV package and superb offers on our award-winning SIMs and smartphone plans. Don't miss up to 33% off in the BT Great January sale. Join today. Visit bt.com/sale.
Offer ends 31st of January 2017. New customers. BT Infinity 83% UK coverage. Subject to availability. Terms apply.
Whether you're saving up for a trip to paradise or building your dream bathroom, the money you're putting aside is perfectly safe, protected by the FSCS. Should anything happen to your bank, building society or credit union, it's completely automatic, free of charge, and you'll normally get your money back within 7 days. You'll probably never need us, but it's good to know we're here. To check the limit and that you're fully covered, search FSCS Protected.
Nigel Farage on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Mrs. Merkel in trouble, election coming up in September, terrorist attacks, and of course, on New Year's Eve 2015, those mass open sexual assaults on the streets of Cologne, all leading to the police getting tough and racially profiling and stopping people from North Africa going into the centre of town. I have to say we've heard both sides of the argument, but overwhelmingly what is coming in through text and through other forms of social media is support for the chief. Hi Nigel, Chief of Police absolutely doing his job, protecting the public. Honestly, where's people's common sense? Agree with the caller Ryan from earlier. Thank you, Anne in Blackburn. And that is typical. The German police did the right thing, no question. Liberals infuriate me, who have no experience of these awful things, Rob in Cambridge. And that's generally the majority response that we're getting is that the number of arrests, the number of sexual assaults was massively down. The police did what they had to do. Some callers, though, making the point you don't want to offend an entire community. Neil in Woking, what do you make of it all?
Hi, Nigel. Listen, you got to give me a moment to laud the kudos on you. First of all, I want to congratulate you for being the prime architect of Brexit. It is like the American Revolution without any bloodshed.
Well, sadly, yes. Neil, I said that on the night of the referendum, that we'd done it without a shot being fired, and then I forgot that, of course, Joe Cox had been murdered. But that aside, I agree with you. Normally, battles for independence mean you've got to put on uniforms and fight, and we did it through the ballot box, and that was a very good thing.
Indeed, and I was thrilled with the result. By the way, before I get labeled as a total right-wing conservative, I'm of the Common Sense Party.
Wow.
Which is to say, are
you the leader of the party, Neil? I mean, how many members have you got?
I'm all alone, apparently. But indeed, I feel there's this reluctance on our part in the Western world in general to enforce our culture, our laws, our way of life. Why is it if we visit somewhere in the Middle East, for example, or Asia or whatever, we implicitly have to comply with their culture and their laws? If not, we would be sternly punished, if not put to death. And yet, when they break our laws, oh, well, no, we're being racist. It's absolutely ludicrous.
Well, doesn't this all go down to the fact that the fish rots from the head down? And our leaders have frankly been ashamed of who we are. I mean, this country, Neil, that you're in, we have a Christian constitution. The Queen is defender of the faith. We've lived by a Judeo-Christian culture for centuries, and yet we seem to be terrified of standing up and saying that for fear that it might cause offence to somebody else. We've had in the last few years people say, oh, don't talk about Christmas. That might offend non-Christians. Talk about Winterval. Well, to hell with that. And that's really what you're saying, isn't it, Neil? That we've kind of lost our muscularity about who we are.
I feel the identity crisis is profound in this country. And don't get me wrong, I've been here, well, not that long, but I love this country. I love the UK. I would proudly be a citizen if they would grab me. Talk to Theresa, would you?
Oh, it's going to start getting very tough now after Brexit, Neil,
But I absolutely believe, yes, the UK needs to stand rigid, especially now that Brexit is in place. You need to absolutely, clarify your identity with the world. It's like, no, this is what we are. This is what we stand for. This is our country. Here's our laws. If you wish to live here, if you want to coexist with us, this is what you need to comply with. We're not, going to kowtow to you. This is our laws. This is our culture.
Yeah, and we will respect your private observance and your differences, but we have the rule of law in this country, and we're going to enforce it. And perhaps if we'd done that, some of the terrible sexual crimes that we saw in Britain, in towns like Rotherham, would not have happened. And Neil, tell me, is Trump going to be a good president?
I think he would be. I'm a little bit concerned about that administration he's been picking.
Right.
He's got some fairly extreme people in these, rather powerful positions. I think Trump knows how to delegate, and he knows what he wants, and he will get, as you said, he's the silverback alpha male. And
yes,
he absolutely will get it, but I'm a little bit nervous about that administration.
Going to be fascinating, and thank you very much indeed for your call. Martin in Glasgow. Martin, what do you make of the police's behaviour?
Hi, Nigel. Just before I say it's a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
And well done to you, sir, for all your hard work over the years. Let me say the police were perfectly correct what they did. I think that Merkel should be put in jail, basically. It's disgraceful what she has done. She's said, as you've said many times, that she's let a million in or not more.
Yeah.
They don't know who they are. They could be criminals, and most of them won't be, but a lot of them will be. And to me, it's perfectly simple. As soon as somebody has found to do what they were doing last New Year, they should be immediately deported. To me, that's easy. There should be no qualms about it. They're arrested for doing. And I'll tell you, these lefties that are phoning up, I would suggest if it was their mother or sister or whatever, it would be a different thing altogether then.
Well, you talk about deported, Martin. Don't forget that the guy that killed those people in the Berlin Christmas market had already been in prison in Italy, but of course had come into Germany, had been rejected as an asylum seeker, and yet had not been deported. So it goes to show, doesn't it, that actually it isn't just, the previous caller talked about us standing up for our culture more. I think the rest of Europe needs to start doing the same thing, really.
I think, as you said, look at that Royal thing in this country. I was in disbelief when I heard that.
I know.
Because people are frightened of this ludicrous allegation of racism.
It's crackers.
Aimed in their right mind can see it's ludicrous what's going on there.
Yeah.
And to me, they should be immediately sent back to where they came from if they've caused that amount of trouble.
Yeah. Is that what the SNP would say?
Let's put it this way, Nigel. I think you know the answer to that.
I do. I'm sorry I asked it. Martin, thank you very much indeed for your call. And lastly, we're going to go to Jim in High Wycombe in Buckinghamshire. Jim, hello. What do you make of it all? Racial profiling, does it work?
Well, to be honest, I'm absolutely amazed that they came to their senses enough to do it. I mean, what we've seen for so long in Europe is extremism, and by that I mean extreme tolerance.
Yes.
And I don't mean extremely tolerant, I mean extreme tolerance. And unfortunately, the equal and opposite reaction to extreme tolerance eventually is extreme intolerance. And surely to steer a more moderate and sensible course would be, in the long term, beneficial to us all. And I think it's perfectly moderate to turn away people that are even 20% more likely to commit an offence. I know it's harsh on the people that are innocent, but at the end of the day, what happened the year before happened, and if something hadn't have been done about it and it had happened again, all hell would have broken loose. So, I think the police were absolutely right.
It was,
but nevertheless, I'm amazed they did it, given the recent...
Yeah, well, I think Jim, change is coming. No, Jim, I understand that, and thank you. And I have to say, my own view on this is I think the German authorities literally had no choice. The normally quiet, placid German people are frightened, they are angry, and they're beginning to turn to different political parties. They're beginning to criticise the European system of free movement. They're looking at Angela Merkel, who, in my opinion, made the worst policy decision of any modern political leader in unconditionally saying, whoever wants to come, we can cope, we can deal with you. I think it was an absolutely disastrous, irresponsible thing to do. She is fighting for her political life. She's fighting for the future survival of the European project too. And I agree with the last caller saying he was surprised they had the guts to do it. Believe me, you can expect a lot more behaviour like this from the German authorities. Big change is coming to the politics of Germany and the rest of Europe too. Well, we next are going to my favourite business organisations, the CBI, the IOD, the industrial manufacturing engineers, all the people who I fought so hard against during the referendum. But now they're saying, do you know what? Let's look forward to 2017. Let's make a success of things. Let's get on with Brexit. Let's bring the country together. Let's be a success. It's music to my ears. It's the new year. Should we all crack out the booze and celebrate because we're now all coming together? Oh gosh, I can't. I've given it up for January.
On FM, online, on your mobile and on digital radio. Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 12 o'clock, a man's been shot dead in a police operation near the M62 in Huddersfield. West Yorkshire Police say they were involved in a pre-planned operation around 6 p.m. The force has referred itself to the watchdog. Both slip roads at junction 24 of the M62 remain closed. A British soldier has died in what the MOD has called an incident in Iraq. A spokesman says it wasn't the result of enemy activity. LBC's Philip Chrysakos reports.
The Ministry of Defence says the soldier was part of the 2nd Battalion Duke of Lancaster's regiment and the family has been told. The spokesman says the death occurred in Taji following what's being called an incident that is currently under investigation. The soldier's family has asked for a period of grace before the name is released.
12 people have been arrested in raids as Turkish police seek a gunman over 39 deaths at a nightclub. The attacker fled the scene in Istanbul early on New Year's Day. The Islamic State group has claimed responsibility. Serdal Kanites says he called his friend who was trapped inside.
He was so scared, the voice, because he was saying, very bad things happen here. You will see, I have to close. Then he closed the phone. Are you all right? My friend's all right. Then he say, you will see on the TV, you will see, then close.
8 other people are being questioned. The Foreign Office says 2 people have died at a seaside resort in southwest Cambodia. Local reports suggest the man in his 30s and a woman in her 20s took their own lives on New Year's Eve. Plans for 14 new garden villages have been approved by the government. 48,000 homes will be built across England and many more in 3 larger garden towns. Kevin Fitzgerald is Honorary Director of the Campaign to Protect Rural England in Hertfordshire. He's told LBC the developments have to be suitable and well placed.
There's a bigger question about why does it all have to happen down here in the southeast when there are parts of the country a couple of hours up the road who would love to see more development, more economic growth, and indeed have got the space, and they've got brownfield sites where old factories have been demolished.
And a pensioner who wears an Elvis jumpsuit has abandoned his plan to be elected to Parliament after nearly 2 decades. 72-year-old David Bishop from Nottingham of the Bus Pass Elvis Party says his 11th campaign was his last. LBC weather: cold with frost or fog this morning, a low of -5, wet in the far north and brighter in the south and east later on, a high of 7 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Charles Rowe.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nigel Farage. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC.
It was a bruising referendum campaign with people like me on the Leave side saying, let's get off this shit before it sinks and join a bigger, better world. But the establishment and the business organisations telling us, no, terrible things might happen to us. But today they're talking about bringing the country together. They're talking about being committed to making 2017 a year of progress and success. Are all our Brexit worries over, or hasn't it even begun until Article 50 kicks in when Theresa May does that in March? Is the worst to come, or has the new year started on the right, positive tone, telling us, actually, come on in, the water's lovely, with nothing to fear at all? Well, it certainly was a rough, tough first 6 months of last year, with a referendum across the whole of the UK, which I think will probably go down as the most viciously fought campaign in modern politics in Britain, not in America, where, of course, the campaign between Trump and Clinton was light years ahead of us in terms of nastiness. But we did see from the business establishment doom-laden predictions. The experts, do you remember Michael Gove telling us we've had enough of experts? It's a wonderful line, it'll live forever. But we had the lot, didn't we? We had the International Monetary Fund telling us how awful it would be. The Bank of England warning us what dreadful things might happen to us. And we had the big businesses, Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan. We had John Major, we had Tony Blair, and yes, we had the CBI, we had the Institute of Directors, we had many of these business organisations telling us that bad things were happening. And worst of all, of course, the former Chancellor of the Exchequer. It pleases me so much to say that, but George Osborne telling us that every single household could be worse off by £4,500 every single year, and that the economy could shrink by up to 6%, and that house prices, do you remember this one? House prices could collapse if we voted for Brexit. And I remember on the morning of the 24th of June, and it was just after 4 o'clock in the morning, and the sun came up, and after one of the wettest springs and early summers we'd seen for 60 years, that was quite something. The sun came up, but there weren't many smiling faces in London. In fact, I felt pretty lonely wandering around Westminster and the West End on that day. But today, 5 of the leading business groups, CBI, Chambers of Commerce, IOD, FSB, and the manufacturers and the EEF, have all said they want to work with all corners of Britain, and they are committed to making 2017 a year of progress and success. So that, I think, is good news, but some will argue, that's because we haven't actually left yet. And I suspect that where this conversation will take us is back to the single market, because there are still some trying to keep us in the single market. But I sense that the mood has changed a little bit. And just look at the numbers. You know, FTSE is 27% up from where it was in February last year. The export figures that were out yesterday showed that for the first 10 months of this year, there's been a 3% increase overall in exports. House prices, you listening, Mr. Osborne? They rose 4.5% throughout 2016. The pound is lower. It's about 20% down since the Brexit vote, but it had fallen considerably in the 2 years before that. And I don't necessarily think that is a bad thing. What do you think? Do you think these business organisations are right? Do you think we should be optimistic? Do you think we should get on with it? Or are you still worried that a triggering of Article 50 could really damage our future economic prospects? Our first caller on this subject is Jeff in Finchley. Jeff, it's good morning now, isn't it, actually? Jeff, hello.
It is indeed. Hello, Nigel.
Hi there.
What a privilege it is to speak to you. I've been quite a fan of your common sense, actually, ever since I've been listening about UKIP and all the rest. I've been studying, and I don't take these things lightly. I'm 65 years old. I was around for the original vote on the European Parliament, or not the European Parliament, sorry, the Common Market.
Common Market, yes, that's right.
Yes, I voted to stay out, simply for the fact we were letting down our Commonwealth, which we did badly. New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and the rest of the Common Market. I won't go through the list. And then we decided to go with these 7 countries that we've all been at war with throughout our history, and said, oh yes, you're marvellous, yeah, we'll go with you. And then all of a sudden, over the last 40 years, or more than 40 years, then it becomes this European Parliament, this super-duper mass conglomeration of a succession, really, of the failed Soviet Union. You put that many countries together, it doesn't work.
But Jeff, all the experts told us it was really good for us and it was making us rich, and that if we left it, doom. I mean, the sky might fall in.
I tell you what, I'm sitting here now watching. Okay, so we've gone down a couple of pips here. The pound has actually, and nobody mentions this, over the last 6 weeks, has actually gone up against the euro. It might have gone down against the dollar, but it's actually gone up a little bit against the euro. The euro is a bit of a disaster. It's going to be, when we come out of it, poor old Greeks, I feel so sorry for them. Poor Italians, I feel very sorry for them. The French will then go down the tubes. And it is very, very sad. I used to love, in my teens, my 20 to 30, I used to love exchanging the peseta, the Deutschmark. If I was travelling into Europe, it was to have different cultures, to try and speak different languages and have a laugh while I was doing it. not this great big conglomeration of what's happened. It's a sinking like of Russia coming down, all those little countries, and now European. Marvellous, isn't it? This morning I was watching Rip Off Britain, and unfortunately they couldn't speak about, they could speak about the Moroccans being, people in Barcelona having their purses pinched and all the rest of it. They didn't speak about the poor people from Romania and all the rest of it that were actually doing the work, the picking of the thing. Now, it's common sense. If you take somebody like a school teacher out of Poland or whatever, and they can earn in 1 week in this country,
well, of course,
they were being paid as a teacher that took them a month. They're obviously going to come to this country.
Of course they were, Jeff, and we weren't blaming them for doing it. We were blaming our government for allowing it to happen, and that was the point. But no, your point about the pound versus the euro is right. The euro is currently weak, and the Donald dollar is currently very strong. But Jeff, you're clearly very happy with where we are and optimistic about where we're going, and keep cheerful. We go to Matthew across in Calais. Matthew, what do you think about this year and Article 50 and Brexit?
Oh, well, Nigel, nice to talk to you again. Well, first of all, I'd just like to mention that I'm a Remainer, as you may remember, but I'm disappointed you weren't nominated for the Queen's Awards there.
Oh, no, they hate me, Matthew.
Well, yeah, but I think you've got to get people to nominate you, and I'm sure you'll get one. Anyway, just going to the subject.
Come on. Very interesting. But come on. So we've got all these business organisations, Matthew, and you were a Remainer, got all these business organisations actually striking an upbeat note for 2017. Isn't that great news?
Well, it is great. It's positive to have good news, positive news out there, but I think that they're wrong. As soon as we trigger Article 50, it will be a disaster, and I just hope the High Court rules that Parliament has to decide, and basically it all gets discussed. I mean, and I think there's going to be an early election. I mean, basically Scotland is not going to go for Brexit. They want to stay in Europe. I mean, I accept we've got to leave Europe, and basically our only card is by just hanging on a bit more, waiting to see what happens in Italy, France, Germany, and we'll get a get-out-of-jail-free card for free. Well, I mean, basically France is going to go out, or who knows, other things are going to happen.
Yeah. No. Well, Matthew, that's my point, though, isn't it? That I think I feel we voted to get ourselves off a sinking ship. It could be that things go so badly wrong in Europe in 2017 with all these elections and with the oldest bank in Italy on the verge of bankruptcy. I mean, we may not leave the European Union. It might not exist in 2 years' time.
That's what I think. But if we go for Article 50, we're going to be they're going to push us out after 2 years, and they'll punish us. They'll fine us, whatever. We could get out for free if we hang on a bit. But I think, the Brexit people won the referendum, and I think it's a big mistake. I mean, at the moment, what the Conservatives are doing, I'm a Conservative voter, but who knows who I'm going to vote for, because I think it's got to be the most important thing now for the UK is this Brexit. So all the sort of parties have to work together as a coalition, and really, the Conservative, I'll be unhappy if they just, do a deal and not even consult Parliament, and, it'll be a disaster.
Matthew, where you and I disagree fundamentally is we're both very worried about the future of the Eurozone, about what's happening within the European Union. You think if we hang on for a bit, we'll get out of jail for free. I think we should get the hell out as quickly as we possibly can. But thank you very much indeed again for the call. Kevin in Stratford. Kevin, what do you think?
I think it's going to be a disaster for us to leave.
Right.
First of all, a lot of people have said, immigrants are, sort of pushing down wages. There is no European mandate or statute that exists that forces UK employers to employ European workers. They just do that because it's cheaper.
Of course.
So that means, so after Brexit, they're going to want to lose their bottom line and pay British workers more? Is that your belief?
Well, a market's a market, you know, and it's and demand and supply are big factors in it. So the answer is, if you remove the oversupply, then the price of labour goes up. Yes.
No, what will happen is you'll get 0-hour contracts being the norm, and then you'll have no one to complain to because there'll be no Europe. Point two is our utilities, right? Thatcher and the Conservatives stole the family silver. We are held to ransom by manufacturing and utility companies. There's no easing that we can afford, that we can place upon the government, our own people in Europe, in Britain, if anything goes wrong. We are held to that. Nissan already went to Poland.
Well, Kevin, just quickly, can I ask you, do you think the Eurozone's looking in a healthy condition, and do you think that the EU's got a very successful future ahead of it?
Okay, here's what I think. Planning with 500 million other people to make a market that works, right? So working together to make a market that works is better than going off without literally anything internally to support ourselves in the world and being held to ransom. It would be better.
Kevin, I couldn't disagree with you more, I have to say. We're leaving a failing EU, we're going to rejoin the world. We disagree on that fundamentally. So are you optimistic going into 2017, or do you think, as some callers do, that somehow triggering Article 50 will bring doom and gloom? I'm Nigel Farage, here on LBC, where the time is now 12:15.
This is LBC.
This wine is giving me lots of earth, strong notes of forest floor, bits of rubble, and down in the distance a great white stallion calling out to its mate. Yes, a most complex wine.
Put a cork in it. For wine without the faff, order at redorwhitetonight.com. Our experts make suggestions based on what you like, so the only choice you have to make is red or white tonight. Always drink responsibly.
Whether you're saving up for a big anniversary or a coral reef diving holiday, the money you're putting aside is perfectly safe, protected by the FSCS. Should anything happen to your bank, building society or credit union, it's completely automatic, free of charge, and you'll normally get your money back within 7 days. You'll probably never need us, but it's good to know we're here. To check the limit and that you're fully covered, search FSCS Protected.
The new year is here, and with it all those health kicks and resolutions. So whether you're working out at the gym or working out how to use the new juicer, make a New Year's promise that's worth sticking to and switch to digital radio. You'll get all your favourite stations plus extra digital stations, and you can listen in lots of ways. A DAB digital radio, on a connected speaker, or take it with you wherever you go on your tablet or smartphone. Get set for 2017 with digital radio.
To find out about the many ways to listen to digital radio, visit getdigitalradio.com.
If you love radio, go digital.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Every NHS patient could be asked to show their passport before they receive healthcare. Claire Gerardo, a former chair of the Royal College of GPs.
It's going to disadvantage a vast number of people, change the culture and ethos of our health system, cost a lot of money, and it's actually probably not going to do what it sets out to do.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast, every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
So the business organisations who told us things would be awful as we headed into 2017 post-Brexit are now saying it's going to be fine, guys, let's make the most of it. And let's just remind ourselves what is happening in the rest of the European Union this year. So the first 6 months of last year, Brexit was the big global event. The big global event, of course, for the second half of 2016 were those dramatic American elections and the victory, I'm pleased to say, of Donald Trump. But it is Europe that I think, or European politics, that will dominate the things we talk about this year. So just to sort of give you a quick run through. In the Netherlands, their general election takes place in the middle of March. Geert Wilders, he of the unusual hairstyle, even more unusual than Donald Trump's, I have to say, is currently 10 points ahead in the opinion polls and likely to be the biggest party in the Dutch parliament. In France, they've got the presidential elections. It's 2 rounds. The first of them is in April. The second of them is in May. At the moment, the favourite to win the first round is Marine Le Pen of the French National Front, and she will go through probably to a runoff against François Fillon, who is the new Conservative candidate. In Germany, as we talked about earlier, Mrs. Merkel faces elections in September. Difficult to see at the moment how she can be beaten, but she can certainly be very seriously bruised. And the big one is Italy. Italy, where Matteo Renzi held a referendum, their Prime Minister, in December on fundamental constitutional change. He lost, he resigned. Italy's in a state of real flux. There could be an Italian general election. And Beppe Grillo's five-star movement is currently on 32% in the polls and leading. And the Northern League is on 12% in the polls. And they are two parties that want a referendum on whether Italy should stay in the euro. The Italian people, in a referendum tomorrow, would vote to leave the euro. So we could be very close to one of the biggest countries in the European Union having a majority government that wants to leave the euro. And who's to say what will happen in France? Every expert will tell you that Le Pen cannot win. But I would say right now that she will certainly get into the 40% in round two, and who knows what events could take place between now and then. So I'm taking the view, thank goodness we're getting out of something that doesn't work. And my own view is, why don't we hurry up and get on with it? Tony in Farringdon, Oxfordshire, what do you make of all this?
Hi, you're right, Nigel. Well, as I'm part German, I have a sort of affiliation with Germany, and of course my German grandmother, who's a big fan of yours, by the way.
Right, okay.
But she was born in 1938, and during a time which was probably the darkest in European history. You'd be the first to know about that. She really wishes that the AfD, the Alternative for Deutschland party, does better than it should, than it really should at the moment. It's just that they're not very well known, and she's sort of hoping that this whole thing really ends, because the European Union is basically something for German politicians to stand ramrodded at and be very nationalistic about, because they can't do that about Germany because of
absolutely right, Tony. Very smart, very smart. I've thought that myself for some years.
Yes, no, we've seen that, and it's quite worrying, really. But as a 25-year-old who's been listening to this economic debate, it's still going on, really. It's great, because I keep hearing all these things about the pound will be weaker. That means house prices are going to be lower. And I thought, oh, that's great. And they said, then they said all the migrants will go, and that no one will have the jobs. And there'll be job opportunities for me. And all these actually quite nice things for me personally, and for the forgotten youth. And the more doom-laden they sound, the more fantastic it sounds for me, because it wasn't really good beforehand, especially for young people like us. Just trying to get on the housing ladder, trying to get an actual proper job. And so, to be honest, it's actually been quite nice to hear all these sort of doom-laden things, because, well, one, it can only get better, well, especially for us.
Well, I'm sorry to say, Tony, that it isn't happening, and that house prices haven't come down. But no, I take your point. I mean, actually, a slightly weaker pound, a little bit of inflation, and if property prices did come down a bit, it would not be a bad thing at all, because for your generation, how on earth do you get started? How on earth do you ever get on the ladder? I'm just not actually convinced that is what's going to happen. I think, Tony, our future economic success will depend very much on just how bold our government is, and whether it takes the opportunity of Britain going for Brexit, as these business organisations now respect. If it takes that and uses it to get us out there in a bigger world, I hope they do. I hope they get on with it. I'm just not convinced, I have to say, that Mrs. May has quite the kind of thrusting leadership that perhaps we need right now at this moment in time. Tony, thank you very much for your call. Next we go to Samuel in Hendon. Samuel, hello.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, so I voted Brexit.
Yeah.
And we voted 6 months ago, and we haven't heard a word from the government what they're planning on doing. I find that very, very disturbing.
Do you know, Samuel, the first person I met this morning buying the papers at 7 o'clock, and the bloke said to me, "I voted for that Brexit, Mr. Farage. When's it going to happen?" As if it's my fault, I couldn't believe it. Do you know something? I did get the argument that Cameron and Osborne have been so arrogant about this that there was no plan B in Whitehall. They just hadn't prepared for the contingency of Britain voting to leave. So, I get that. I also get that it takes time to get people in place to start negotiating.
Yeah, but at least we should have a bit of an idea what's going on.
But, had Mrs May been running a business where every day costs money, as opposed to being the Prime Minister, and had she cracked on, put her team in place, triggered Article 50, and got on with it, we would not now be waiting for what the Supreme Court now tells us she has to do with Parliament. We wouldn't be being dictated to by Michel Barnier, the Frenchman who's representing the European Commission. And I feel, Samuel, as you say, we haven't done enough. We're now on the back foot. We're being dictated to. And just to come out and say Brexit means Brexit, trust me, I can't tell you what my plans are. She wouldn't even tell the Queen what her plans were. Although the Queen's got a heavy cold, I know. Perhaps she didn't want to shock her. But Samuel, I'm with you. I think they've been too indecisive. What would you like the Prime Minister to do?
I'm saying I don't expect the Prime Minister to have a plan, but I believe that she should at least show us what she's trying to do, what she's aiming to, what she's got so far.
Oh, I'll tell you what she's got so far, Samuel. I can tell you exactly what she's got so far. 3/5 of 5/8 of very, very little, because they haven't really started. And then the next argument will be, oh no, we haven't got time because we've got the French elections and we've got the German elections. And before you know it, 2017 will have gone. And unless we've really put our foot down and been bold about this, I fear that this year could be one of indecisiveness from the British government and for the Brexit process. I hope I'm wrong, Samuel, but let's talk in a year, if not before, obviously, but let's talk in a year and see where we are. Thank you. Alexander in Harrow, are you optimistic? Are you bullish? Do you think things look okay?
Hi, Nigel. Yeah, I do. In 2015, I was actually working in New York in financial services. And, during the whole time, the portfolio managers that I used to deal with, the traders I dealt with, saw Brexit as a fantastic opportunity for trade. They saw the decline of the pound as a fantastic opportunity. For years and years, they've been saying that the pound has been completely overvalued, especially against the US dollar. And since Brexit, obviously, the pound has gone a bit more stale and declined and whatnot. But yeah, the murmurs were going around that Brexit would be a fantastic opportunity, and which we've seen ending in the year. I mean, the FTSE's ended 2016 the all-time high, up 27 points. I mean, all this doom and gloom, and the secret murmurings around, especially US banks based in the US, when I was there, where you have quite a cult following, Mr. Farage, I must say. The decline of the pound would be a fantastic opportunity for the pound, especially against the dollar, which we've seen. They're 20% better off now, the Americans, when they trade with us.
The use of the word cult, Alexander, worries me considerably, but no, I mean, look, I think that's right. I mean, the truth of it, of course, is that the pound started falling in July 2014. Because it had been grossly overvalued for too long. One of the main reasons being, of course, the net capital flows coming into this country to pump money into the property market in London and the South East. So yeah, I've got no concerns about this at all. But you say you were there working with people in this industry, yet the voices we hear are from the big companies who, almost to a man and woman, within the city, as we still call it, are saying Brexit could be really bad for business. Why is that?
Do you know what? There's so much vested interest now in the European Union. The European Union is bigger than any multinational company in the world, and obviously the subsidies and the tax evasion and all that goes on behind it. These especially the politicians that say it. We all know that every politician wants a cushy job, within the European Union. So I mean, they're not really speaking from the heart. And obviously, I guess when you speak from the heart, it really does.
They're all a bit too close to each other, Alexander, aren't they? Goldman Sachs employees becoming unelected prime ministers in Italy and Greece. It's all a bit of a closed shop. Thank you. And one or two of your texts and tweets coming in. Hi, Nigel. It's only a matter of time. The EU will collapse. The party's over. It's a mess. The people of Europe are waking up. We've had enough, says Anne. Nigel, why can't we just leave now? Why will it take years? The electorate have spoken, haven't they? What's all this about a soft Brexit? Why are the borders still wide open? Well, good point, Jane. What on earth is going on? And why, Jane, are we still paying a net £30 million a day to be in this club? And why is net migration from the EU still running at record levels? Why don't we, I agree, just get on with it? I'm Nigel Farage here on LBC. It's 12:30. Here with the news headlines is Charles Rowe.
A police gun has killed a man in an operation near the M62 in Huddersfield. West Yorkshire Police say they've immediately referred the matter to the watchdog and are fully cooperating. A soldier's died in central Iraq, but not as a result of enemy activity. The Ministry of Defence says it happened in Taji. An investigation is underway, the family's been told. A study has found UK rail commuters will now spend up to 14% of their pay on travel after fare rises. Campaigners Action for Rail claim that's about 6 times the figure of their European counterparts. LBC weather, cold and frost or fog, a low of -5. Wet in the far north later on, but brighter in the south and east, a high of 7 degrees.
LBC.
At Red or White Tonight, we make recommendations based on what you like. It's great wine without the faff. Order now at redorwhitetonight.com. Always drink responsibly.
Cancer is happening right now. Dr. Victoria Forster, a researcher in Newcastle, is working to beat cancer right now.
I was diagnosed with leukemia when I was 7 years old, and when I went to university I decided to pursue a career in cancer research. It has occurred to me about how many friends I lost 20 years ago. You know, I hope to do something which means that people like them can survive.
We are working to beat cancer right now. Help us beat it sooner. Search Cancer Research UK to donate.
Whether you're saving up for a new playroom for the kids or a tropical adventure to see some real cheeky monkeys, the money you're putting aside is perfectly safe, protected by the FSCS. Should anything happen to your bank, building society or credit union, it's completely automatic, free of charge, and you'll normally get your money back within 7 days. You'll probably never need us, but it's good to know we're here. To check the limit and that you're fully covered, search FSCS Protected.
Vodafone's biggest ever winter sale is now on. Treat yourself to great savings on big brands, with 6 months half price on selected pay monthly bundles, plus up to 50% off pay-as-you-go phones and home broadband connection fees. Discover in store or search Vodafone Winter Sale. Vodafone, power to you.
Term agreements and credit check may apply. Sale ends 31st of the 1st 17 while stocks last. Broadband subject to availability, acceptance and delivery charges.
New year. Exciting, isn't it? New beginnings, fresh starts, daily commutes. Yep, you heard right. At the Vauxhall Bonus Tag event from the 27th of December to the 16th of January, there's up to 22% off selected models across the range, with many including features such as touchscreen display. So roll on the New Year commute. Visit your local Vauxhall retailer or search Vauxhall Bonus Tag event. Participating retailers only. Selected stock only. Limited period. Registrations by the 31st of January 2017. Offer not available with any other offers. Full T's and C's apply.
Nigel Farage on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Our 5 big business organisations are looking forward to us all coming together in 2017 and taking full advantage of the opportunities presented by Brexit. And I think it's great. I think it's fantastic news. I think we had too much moaning for the last 6 months of last year. I can't see what anyone's frightened of anyway, because I think we've left a sinking ship. Amelie in Sevenoaks, what do you think?
Hi, how are you?
Hello, very well, thanks.
Good. I actually feel like it doesn't matter what the CBI says or any of the other organisations that have made this announcement, because I think while we're consigned to a Conservative government, they'll always use Brexit as an excuse to impose further austerity measures. And we need to start actually looking towards an alternative to the Conservatives and focusing on that rather than what's happening with Brexit. I think that Brexit has had personally a negative impact on me and the hopes and dreams of many other people living in the UK who want to work and live in Europe. But that aside, I'm equally as concerned about the effects that the Conservative government are having on us and the inequality they're imposing on the the whole of our society in the UK. We've got the greatest equality since the 1920s, I think, and the Conservatives aren't doing anything about it. I know that Brexit is just going to be an excuse. That's how I feel.
Emily, can I just ask, are you a younger voter, Emily?
When you said, well, I'm 38 next
38. No, it's interesting because the language you used about what's happened to our future, so many of not all, obviously, because a third of younger voters voted for us to leave, but so many younger voters talk about as if we've lost something. There's something terrible's going on. And what's really interesting is that, I mentioned Italy not long ago, and the five-star movement now leading in the opinion polls. He hasn't got a voter over 40. They're all under 40. And interestingly, the growth of Marine Le Pen, again, it's all the younger generation. It's just interesting that there is a different perspective from younger voters in the United Kingdom than there is from the rest of Europe. Maybe it's because we didn't join the euro. If we joined the euro, I suspect we'd all be Eurosceptic and heavily so. I mean, all I was saying to you is this, and it's a slightly separate conversation, but austerity. Do you know that in George Osborne's 6 years as Chancellor of the Exchequer, our national debt doubled? So actually, you talk about austerity, but the reality is we're still borrowing as a country, far more money than we can pay back every year. So
what's that got to do with immigration? What's that got to do with freedom of movement? That we're living in an age of accelerated capitalism and neoliberalism, borrowing and growth.
No, we're not. We're not, Emily. No, we're not. We're absolutely not. This is not capitalism. This is global corporatism. It is the giant multinational companies hand in glove with big business and with big regulation.
Linked to capitalism. What we need to do is start coming down on the bigger corporations and making them pay their tax rather than imposing so much austerity on poorer people and exacerbating inequality in our society, rather than using immigration as the reason for our austerity. You can blame George Osborne for. And I'm not a fan of George Osborne. I thought a lot of his policies were completely unfair. But we need to start looking at the wider perspective rather than nationalistic politics, which is engulfing the rest of Europe at the moment.
No, it's engulfing the world, Emily. It's called normality. People want to live in nation-state democracies, and that was the great lesson of 2016, is people want to be in charge of governing themselves. They do not want this modern form of global corporatism where we give up our democracies and we literally surrender to the giant corporations. I'd love to see small capitalism, individual capitalism. I think we're further away from that than we've been for a long, long time. But thank you very much for the call. Nicholas in Lewisham, tell me what you make of our economic prospects.
Hi, Nigel. Very good to speak to you. I was a Brexiteer, but my main problem is with the whole idea of immigration and the negative campaign that was fought against immigration. I know that you yourself are married to a German national, I believe. Is that the case? Sorry?
It is, yeah.
It is. What guarantees would you, as previously the leader of UKIP, give to those nationals of European countries living within the UK right now and those of countries foreign to that?
We've let too many people in, Nicholas, but we let them in legally because these were the agreements that Tony Blair signed us up to and the other political parties agreed with. So you cannot retrospectively say to people who came legally, you can't be here. And nobody, no fair-minded person would ever dream of doing it. No, of course not. Of course not. What I want us to do, Nicholas, is I've made the point earlier on tonight that from 1950 until 2000, net migration into Britain ran at about 30,000 people a year. All right? It is now running, according to the official figures, at 10 times and plus that figure. I want us to get back to a level of net migration into Britain that is manageable for everybody. And I think that's a reasonable ambition. Now, look, to do that, we are going to have to make some changes to our educational system and to our vocational training in this country, because let's be honest about it, we're not producing enough of our own nurses. We're not producing enough of our own engineers. So you know, there are things that we need to do in this country as well. But I think overwhelmingly what the British people want us to do is to get a grip and to stop discriminating against people from Australia or India in favour of European countries, to take a bigger, global, actually less biased approach for the way in which we deal with this issue. That's what I would suggest to you. I mean, how do you see our future with our borders?
Well, the question I would ask is whether you feel that under a Theresa May Conservative government that net migration will lower post-Brexit.
Well, my worry, Nicholas, is that because she hasn't done anything about Brexit, that in between the referendum result and us leaving at the end of Article 50, another net 500,000 people, maybe more, will have come.
Apologies, sir. Let me rephrase my question. If you were to be Prime Minister, would net migration lower?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course it would. Quite radically, because we'd be making sure that people who are actually coming to settle in this country pass the right criteria, and we had them in the numbers and in the sectors where people are needed. And I repeat the point.
But do you think that that would mean, on a net basis, that the migration would lower in terms of numbers?
Yes, drastically. Drastically. Absolutely drastically. We would not be looking for this massive oversupply of unskilled and semi-skilled labour. But look, you know, it's up to us, isn't it? It's up to us. You know, the people of this country have spoken. One of the main issues about which they spoke was the issue of immigration. They intend to see it through. That is why, even within the Unite Union now, there is a massive argument going on about border controls. Nicholas, 8 out of 10 people in this country want to see us have a sensible, controlled immigration policy. And I would say this, if our politicians don't deliver it after that referendum, there will be very considerable public anger. Thank you very much indeed. We go to James in Harrogate. James, hello.
Hello, Happy New Year to you, sir.
And to you.
I think some of our callers have been, who still think capitalism exists today, have been on the old Jean Monnet programmes over the last 15, 20 years. Because, I mean, listen, I'm at work at 7 o'clock, but I had to call in. I mean, what is going on? Do they not understand control of immigration? Anyway, what did I learn about? Right, the single market.
Yeah.
Why on earth do we have to remain in the single market if the tariff, you know, for most products is more or less a rounding error, and it comes to the sum of around maybe 3 billion? You know, the net cost is 9-10 billion, plus, you know, we're not a self-governing country and we can't form our own relationships. Why on earth do we have to remain in the single market? I mean, it's obvious to me Theresa May is not going to take us out of the single market. If she was, she'd have come out and said it. It's obvious. Wow. So I think you've got a fantastic opportunity to hold the balance of power in 2020, and I think I don't think we're a million miles off a Farage Prime Minister. I really don't. If you come back.
Well, James, I think, you know, I mean, it's late, James, and perhaps you've been on the sauce, I'm not sure. But anyway, the point is this. We do not need to stay in the single market. We voted to come out of the single market. Every single leading campaigner for both Remain and for Leave made it clear that a vote to leave the EU was a vote to leave the single market as well. Doesn't it sound lovely? The single market.
Well,
doesn't it sound clever?
All these young people moaning. I mean, I think what it is, they think, you know, they seem to stick up for workers' rights, you know, across the north of England, but when a decision goes against them, they don't like it. I mean, these are the most illiberal people I've ever known. I mean, this is a new wave. I'm not going to say fascism, but it's a new wave of intolerance. I mean, James O'Brien, I mean, Owen, I could go on. You've heard it all before.
James, I have, and I've met these people, and they don't just think that they disagree with your point of view, they actually believe they are morally superior to you because of the position that they take, and that you, at some point in time, should stop being so silly and stop standing up for what you want to stand in. And you're dead right, James. They are illiberal, they are unworldly, they want to get out of London more, go out and meet real people in business, people like you in wonderful towns like Harrogate. And I think if they did that, they might benefit from the experience. More of your calls on the way. Optimism, pessimism for 2017, the single market, Article 50. Is it time for us to crack on? Just get out before the whole thing collapses. I'm Nigel Farage, here on LBC. The time is 12:45.
This is LBC.
New year. Exciting, isn't it? New beginnings, fresh starts, daily commutes. Yep, you heard right. At the Vauxhall Bonus Tag event from the 27th of December to the 16th of January, there's up to 22% off selected models across the range, with many including features such as touchscreen display. So roll on the New Year commute. Visit your local Vauxhall retailer or search Vauxhall Bonus Tag event. Participating retailers only, selected stock only, limited period. Registrations by the 31st of January 2017. Offer not available with any other offers. Full T's and C's apply.
Whether you're saving up for a trip to paradise or building your dream bathroom, the money you're putting aside is perfectly safe, protected by the FSCS. Should anything happen to your bank, building society or credit union, it's completely automatic, free of charge, and you'll normally get your money back within 7 days. You'll probably never need us, but it's good to know we're here. To check the limit and that you're fully covered, search FSCS Protected.
When we make the right decision once, life can be a lot simpler. That's why we created Flipper. One simple decision that means you never overpay for energy. Throughout the year, we compare energy tariffs on your behalf and flip you onto the best deal. Sign up once, pay a flat fee once a year, and put energy bills out of your mind once and for all. Sign up now at flippercommunity.com and never overpay for energy again. Auto renewal after 1 year. Conditions apply.
Coming up on LBC, Darren Adam.
Workers are spending up to 1/7 of their income on rail fares, around 6 times as much as employees in the rest of Europe. Is there any kind of solution for this?
Darren Adam, leading Britain's conversation on LBC.
We're in 2017. It's the year we're supposed to be coming out of the European Union. Not much is happening from the government, but I'm really pleased to see our 5 leading business groups now accepting where we are and wanting us to get on with it, and to be optimistic and to be happy and to look forward and to recognise the Eurozone, European politics. The whole thing is a mess, and the sooner we're out of it, the better. And maybe, just maybe, we ought to be thinking about what's happening in the United States of America. Because unless you've not noticed, they've got a new president. He's coming in on the 20th to be inaugurated, the 20th of this month. I not only know Mr. Trump, but I know his team very well. They love this country. They want to get America closer to this country, unlike Obama, who said we should be at the back of the queue. Do you remember that during the referendum? Him coming over here telling us we'd be at the back of the queue after all the things our countries have done together. Well, believe me, the Trump administration will, in my opinion, put us somewhere near the front of the queue. Shouldn't we be using this wonderful opportunity that we've got with Brexit to start getting more trade deals with countries like America, Australia? There are 20 countries who, since that vote, have come to us and said, let's start talking, let's start getting on. Isn't it time we actually went global and really became optimistic, not just about 2017, but about our place in the world? Dario from Dartford, what do you make of it all?
Morning. Happy New Year to you, sir.
And to you.
Well, I voted Brexit and would do it in a heartbeat again if I had to.
Yeah.
I'm really excited. I'm in my mid-40s. I'm really thinking about starting up my own business this year as well, because the whole thing is just, I don't know, it's energised me.
Wow.
But I do have a concern.
Mm-hmm.
And that is whether or not the big banks are going to actually let us leave properly. Because, you know, the most positive thing I thought of throughout this whole thing is that we'd be able to trade with the Commonwealth again and, undo some of the damage that we did to them when we went in. Is it not possible to set up a Commonwealth single market economy? Is it?
Oh, Dario, Dario, I was at a conference 3 or 4 years ago in Ottawa, and it was organised by some Canadian politicians, but people like John Howard, who was 4 times Prime Minister of Australia, were there. And there is a big feeling amongst many Commonwealth countries that actually it's been a hugely underused asset. We share a history, we share a language, we share a legal system, we share similar contract law. It's actually much cheaper doing business with people that speak the same language. So no. I mean, look, Derek, the truth of it is, once we're freed from this ridiculous European Union, which bans us from making our own trade deals around the world, once we're in that position, the world is our oyster. We just need leadership, Dario. That's what we need. Well, that's a lovely thought, but no, I haven't got time. I'm working for LBC. No, look, this is we have a Conservative Party, we have a Conservative Party Prime Minister, we have a Labour Party that is absolutely on its back. That opinion poll that I was talking about earlier shows the Conservatives with a 15-point lead. This is up to the Conservatives. This is up to Mrs. May. Now, she's very good at giving speeches. She's very good at talking tough. I was trying for the first few months of her premiership, and said so repeatedly, to give her the benefit of the doubt. What I'm seeing now is a complete lack of vision, of courage, of leadership. And I think she needs to crack on, because I want people like you, Dario, who are inspired and on the verge of entrepreneurship, to be encouraged to get out there and do it. And I do think that the actions of the Prime Minister matter hugely in this. Do you think she's going to do it for us?
I'm very concerned about it. She's saying the right things, but really, you look at her, you look at the PLP of the Labour Party, they all seem, every parliament since Thatcher, the national debt has doubled. It's like they're following the same agenda. And like you said, you couldn't fit a cigarette paper between them. It's because they're all following the same agenda. So I'm very sceptical as to whether or not Theresa May can actually deliver anything.
I tell you what, Dario, if she doesn't, then in 2020, we will have to make it an even bigger earthquake in British politics than we saw in 2016, all right? And if it comes to that, I shall myself be back in the front lines doing something. Believe you me. Thank you very much indeed for your call. We now go to Catherine in Dallas, in Texas, in the United States of America. Catherine, hello.
Good evening. It's an honor to talk to you.
Well, thank
as an
you.
American conservative, I was very enthusiastic for the people of the United Kingdom, Great Britain, with Brexit. We've had 8 years of pure nonsense going on in our country from an economic standpoint, among other things. But my question for the people over there are, with the UN, I know this really doesn't apply specifically to your own economy, but I'm thinking with the UN becoming sort of a joke, and has been a joke for many, many years, do you think we're in for a realignment of maybe just taking apart the UN and saying, hey, let's make America and Britain strong trade partners where it benefits both of our economies? No one loses their job, no one's coming in and on visas and working out, but align ourselves with like-minded countries that want the same thing.
Well,
I'm not talking about an EU. I'm talking about like a new UN type of situation.
Well, I don't know about that, but I tell you what I do know, Catherine, and that's this, that many of our opponents said, oh, well, because the Brexit vote was the Brits pulling up the drawbridge. Oh, no, we weren't. What we were doing was, in fact, freeing ourselves to choose our own relationships across the rest of the world. And the same for Trump. Trump has been, well, he's been called everything, hasn't he? But he's been called isolationist, backward-looking, not recognising the modern world. No. Trump is all for trade. Trump is all for business. He just worries about doing business with a country like China, where the state subsidises the steel industry and almost willfully puts out steel production and closes it down in the USA or the UK. And I genuinely think, Catherine, that a very early, big show that the new US administration and the United Kingdom are going to bring back together that amazing relationship that our two countries have had. And think of all the triumphs and tragedies that we've shared over the course of the last century, all right? You know, and for us to come closer together, to put a trade deal together, not that takes 2 years or 5 years, we could do it in the space, 6 months or something like that with a right business attitude. And I think we'd send a message to countries like us around the world. And yeah, I think we'd start a great trend and a great fashion. It'll be good, Catherine, for you. It'll be good for us. It'll be good for freedom-loving people across the West. And thank you very, very much for your long-distance call. We go to Terry in Brecon. Terry, what do you make of the Brexit situation?
Well, the sooner they get on with it, the better. In 1975, I voted for a common market.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we got robbed of that. Now, the ones who want to remain keep saying, they want a status quo. But it won't be a status quo with a common market, will it? With the EU. It will be, they want to run the army, they want to do everything.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. Look, Terry, you were lied to.
I know we was.
You were lied to.
What's his name? Edward Heath.
Heath.
At a later stage, when someone questioned him about they voted for a common market, he turned around and said, but it was all in the treaty. And yet years later, when someone questioned Ken Clarke about something, he said, I don't know. And they said, well, you should know, you're an MP. And he said, well, we don't know everything that was in it.
Well, yeah, I think it was worse than that, Terry. He admitted that he opined on it and then admitted that he hadn't read it. It's funny, isn't it? We're now being told, after the referendum and everything, we're living in a post-truth age. This is the new sort of dialogue on the left. Well, I'll tell you about post-truth age. Everything that happened in the last 43 years with our membership of a common market that turned very quickly into a political union. Absolutely wrong, completely dishonest. And I just frankly got little or no respect for these people at all. Terry, thank you. Chris, you're the last caller this evening. Tell me what you think. Optimistic, pessimistic?
Pretty pessimistic, to be honest.
Okay.
And I want to actually bring back you in the run-up in the campaign. You talked a lot about little people, particularly in areas outside of London, across England and the rest of the UK. And I think why I want to bring this up is, irrespective of what happens economically, I honestly don't think that people's frustrations or people's the neglect and the deprivation that drove, I think, a lot of people to vote for Brexit. I don't think Brexit will solve those things. I think ultimately a lot of those issues, aside from the immigration issue, are issues of British government and government neglect. That's my opinion.
Chris, I never said Brexit would solve all our problems. I said it would put our government back in charge. I am optimistic about where we're going with this, but I do see a big dark cloud on the horizon. It's called the Eurozone. I'm worried that through the politics of the Eurozone, through the migrant crisis, through the elections taking place all over Europe next year, that actually our biggest trading partner is going to have a huge economic downturn, which is why we must crack on with America and the rest of the world. Let's go global. Let's spread the risk. Thank you for your company. It's been huge fun to be here tonight with you on LBC. I hope you've enjoyed the programme. I'm back tomorrow again at 10 o'clock and leading Britain's conversation at 4 o'clock. It's Steve Allen. But next on LBC...
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.